Hello. Do not adjust your screen. You are seeing the faces of Keith Schillen and Ben Duffy. This is the Schillen and Duffy UFC 274 preview show. It's been a while.
It's always showtime at BetMGM Sports. You can make your first bet risk-free up to $1,000 when you sign up with the code SHERDOG. Don't let another game day go by without having the ultimate sports betting app in the palm of your hand. Discover non-stop excitement with BetMGM's state-of-the-art technology and dozens of betting options, including live wagers, props, parlays, and much more. No matter what your favorite sport is or how you like to wager, find out why there's nothing like getting a W at the king of sportsbooks. Use the code SHERDOG and make your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. Download the BetMGM app and sign up today. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Arizona, Colorado, Washington, D.C., Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, New York, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Wyoming only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire in 7 days from issuance. Excludes Michigan disassociated persons. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, Washington, D.C., Louisiana, Nevada, Wyoming, and Virginia. Call 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help. In Michigan, 1-800-GAMBLER. In Illinois, Indiana, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. In Tennessee, call the Red Line at 800-889-9789. In Mississippi, call 1-888-777-9696. Sports betting is void where prohibited. Promotional offers not available in Nevada.
Crazy month of April. Keith had some vacation. I had some vacation. It's been a couple weeks where we haven't both been on your screen at the same time. We are back. Speaking only for myself, I could not be more excited than to be back with Keith Schillen. And the most important thing that happened is we managed to miss out 2 opportunities to talk about Alexander Romanov versus Chase Sherman. We successfully we slipped the net. We didn't have to talk about that fight. How does that feel, and how does it feel to be back, Keith?
Yeah, it's great, man. So it's funny. You take a vacation to get away from the norm, but then when the vacation's kind of coming to the end, you're looking forward to get back to the norm. And honestly, one of the biggest things getting back to the norm was doing this. I apologize to our listeners. It wasn't our plan. Some kind of scheduling things changed, and you were on vacation. I was on vacation, and just kind of some other plans was to happen. It didn't. But if we're going to get back to normal, what a card to get back to normal. Anytime there's a UFC pay-per-view, I'm super excited. And so, yeah, if we're going to return, let's do it big.
I'm glad you point that out, because I made the little joke about the Romanov versus Sherman fight getting bumped, and so there were 2 times we might have had to talk about it, and we missed them both. But really, we're coming in on the tail end of a couple of fairly low stakes fight night events. UFC on ESPN 35, UFC Fight Night 205, and so forth. But we're back, and this card is anything but low stakes. It is a UFC pay-per-view. Whatever we may say about the watered down nature, the week in, week out cable cards, the UFC has done the opposite with its pay-per-views. It has gone to overstacking these things. One, to help justify the ever increasing price, and 2, to give themselves some insulation in case a top level fight does fall off. There are usually at least 2 title fights on these things. UFC 274 that takes place on Saturday in Phoenix is no exception. At the top, we have Charles the Bronx Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje, which, I mean, if that didn't give you a little bit of goosebumps right there, I don't know why you're watching this show at all. Just south of that is Rose Namajunas and Carla Esparza in a rematch of the original UFC women's strawweight title fight, several years ago. And it's a tale of a fight whose dynamic has done practically a 180 in the time since then. We'll talk more about that later. then the rest of the main card, Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. We've got a couple of legends bouts that anyone who's been watching this sport for 10 years or more, you got Shogun, who Donald Cerrone, Joe Lauzon, who, regardless of what kind of competitive shape they may be in right this instant, there's something in you that still gets excited for their next fight. I mean,
okay. Yeah. So there's a lot to unwrap. I like how you gave the UFC credit and said they stack in their pay-per-views to kind of justify the amount of money that it's going to cost. But then the second one was like also to give them a backup plan. I think that is true. I think both points are true, but I think it's like 99% backup plan, 1% justify the cost. Anytime you have two people fighting for the prize of best fighter in a weight class is always just special to me. Right now, walking on planet Earth, there is two men, Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje, fighting for the title of being the baddest dude in that weight class in the entire world. I mean, that's just great. Like, there's no man walking 155 on the dot that could beat those guys at this point. Right, for that night. Yeah. And then the same could be said about 115 for Carlos Esparza and Rose Namajunas. Now, obviously, take that with a grain of salt. Now, I'm not saying that Makhachev or Chandler or somebody else couldn't win that, but you get what I'm saying. People get what I'm saying. For the moment being, for the title, for being the king of the jungle, whatever you want to say, there's 7 billion people in the world at that moment. Either Charles Oliveira or Justin Gaethje will have the title of the best 155 pounder in the world, and same with Namajunas and Esparza. That's exciting. And then I love that they put Chandler and Ferguson on the undercard, as the third from the top, because if something happens in the main event for some crazy reason, suddenly Charles Oliveira is out, we get probably Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler too again, or if they go that route or whatever. If something happens to Gaethje and we get Chandler and Oliveira again, their first fight was great too. Somehow Tony Ferguson gets the title shot, whatever. It's just fantastic. The card's loaded from top to bottom. I got a couple issues with some of the old veteran fights that I'm not nearly excited as you are, but overall, there's some good prospects, some fights that matter in the rankings. I'm really excited.
Oh yeah, talking about fights that matter in the rankings, we just got done with. UFC Fight Night Font versus Vera. Then before that was the
Andrade.
Yeah, Andrade versus Lemos one. That Andrade versus Lemos card, the entire undercard did not have a single fighter that was above 500 in the UFC. This one has Brandon Royval versus Matt Schnell on the undercard, like on the prelims.
Yeah. How about Norma Dumont? Her last fight, she was headlining a UFC, and now she's buried on the prelims.
Well, if the UFC keeps the women's featherweight division going, that's probably a title eliminator, and it's on the undercard.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like the woman who wins that fight, if they both make weight, whoever wins can probably fight Amanda Nunes next if they want.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's on the undercard.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, Keith, I lost your audio there just for the last sentence or so.
Oh, I just said that's one of the fights that I'm most excited for.
Yeah, it's fantastic stuff. And just a lot of the fight night cards, there will be a lot of fights between fighters that are, under 500 in the UFC or maybe on long losing streaks, in danger of losing their job. Instead, this one got Tracy Cortez and Melissa Gatto, both of whom I believe are still undefeated in the UFC right now. Two of the brighter prospects in that division. Ariane Carnelossi and Lupita Godinez. Like, yeah, this card is stacked.
That's a Schill and Duffy show special fight right there. two girls that we love.
Carnelossi and Godinez?
Yeah.
Yes, the Carnelossi, the official protein snack of Schill and Duffy show, versus Lupi, the woman who wants to fight every single weekend. How can you not love that one?
Do you think what's those? Those commercials? I can't remember who it was. Was it Dustin Poirier maybe? One of the UFC guys, I can't remember who it was, but they had the little protein pack and like pepperoni and crackers or something, and a little. Is it Poirier that does those commercials? What's the company?
P3.
P3, yeah. Do you think like Carnelossi just walks around with like a P3 on her at all times?
Probably. It's got like the little thing of almonds and the cubes of cheese and like.
I just think just waking up at like 2 a.m. and just crank one open real quick.
Crank one open, like, do a couple like deadlifts and then go back to bed. I don't know. This card is also, it's full of things that I was wrong about. Like, as I scroll down this card, I'm just going, Charles Oliveira, he'll get a lot of submissions in the UFC, but he'll never fight for a title, let alone win one. Justin Gaethje, I mean, that crap he's doing over there in WSOF, any guy that has 2 fights that exciting with Luis Palomino, he's going to get starched in the UFC. He's not going to make it. Michael Chandler's never going to come over until it's too late. Like, he'll come over, go 0-3 and be gone. And like Dana will be laughing at how bad Bellator is. Oh, dude, Shogun Rua, he's going to be out of the sport by the time he's 32. There's no way he's going to be fighting at age 40.
Yeah, that one you should have been right about.
I mean, like this whole card just full of kind of surprising narratives. Fighters that are in different places competitively than I thought they would be, 2, 4, 8, 10 years ago. So it was kind of interesting for me to see that as I prepared to do this show tonight. Things I'm happy to be wrong about.
Yeah, did anybody call for a Shogun OSP rematch?
Well, we'll get to it, but it's strange that in this last phase of Shogun's career, they keep on rematching him with people. Why make him fight Little Nog again?
Yeah.
Why make him fight Paul Craig again? Why make him fight OSP again? Like, get some new people in there.
His next fight is going to be Ricardo Arona.
They're going to dig Ricardo Arona out after 14 years on the shelf.
Yeah, just get him in there.
Oh, my goodness. You ready to start talking about these?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. First fight out of the gate at UFC 274, at least as the card is currently constituted, is a bantamweight matchup between Journey Newson and Fernando Garcia. Newson, the 33-year-old Oregonian, is 9-3 with 1 no contest overall. He is 0-2 with 1 no contest in the UFC. It is worth noting that no contest was him absolutely starching Domingo Pilarte 2 years ago here in Houston at UFC 247. 38-second knockout, subsequently overturned when Newson tested positive for cannabis. We talk about this from time to time. Make of that what you will, but it's not as though he tested for an actually performance-enhancing drug. And whatever you may think of weed, this was a 30-second knockout. The only thing weed makes most people do faster is eat potato chips. So, keep that in mind.
What if he was so the nerves would get to him and the weed calms him down, and that makes it a performance enhancer?
I've heard people make that argument for certain. I don't know if I.
Yeah, like if you're making that argument, like stop being such a square.
So, if the cop is telling you to stop being a square, stop being a square.
Yeah. No, listen, just for the record, I am not promoting marijuana use.
But it's worth noting that in the 2 years since that fight, Nevada, which tends to be the leader and trendsetter in terms of regulation, has stopped making at least out of competition amounts of THC metabolites disqualifier. So unless he toked up an hour before he came out, he would have been fine.
Yeah, it's like Nevada, don't try to do a moral thing by banning marijuana, but so the fighter can't smoke a joint before the fight, but he could have just got a hooker to lose the last couple pounds, right? You're over by 2 pounds. Hey, yeah, I don't want to be in the sun anymore. Okay, hey, Matt Serra, Aljamain can't make weight. Call up Bambi.
Pounds. Wow, man. People must be loaded for bear. Shit. Anyway, after the Pilarte fight, things got turned around on Newson. He got knocked out in 40 seconds by Randy Costa, who just erased him with a head kick. What that means is Newson comes into this fight officially with no wins in the UFC in 3 tries. He'll look to get it turned around against Fernie Garcia. Garcia, the 30-year-old Dallas native Fortis MMA product, is 10-1 overall. This will be his UFC debut. He won his way into the UFC with a first-round knockout of Joshua Weems on Dana White's Contender Series last October. Including that fight, he is on a 5-fight winning streak all across LFA. Odds on this one do favor Garcia to get it done in his debut. He is -190. Newson is +155. I'll say this much. I'm excited that Fernie Garcia made it to the UFC. I'm happy to see him in the UFC, but I think he's going to have rough sledding here. He's a well-rounded fighter. You know, hits hard on the feet. Primarily likes to box. He's a pretty good wrestler. At the lowest levels, he was a good grappler. He was good at taking the back, good at working for chokes. Even at the LFA level, that kind of dried up. You look at his LFA run, he went 4-1 in LFA, and of those 5 fights, 3 were split decisions. And I kind of agreed in all the cases, like not with the decision itself, but just that I can understand why that was a split decision, because Fernie Garcia has a tough time winning rounds. He's not much of a finisher at this level, even if he did plunk Josh Weems. And he has a tough time putting out enough volume or scoring takedowns and doing damage on the ground to really put his stamp on rounds. And in the UFC, that's going to hurt him, because the UFC bantamweight division at this point is full of finishers and dynamic fighters. And if you yourself are not a finisher, you're basically giving your opponents 15 minutes every time out to find your chin or find your neck. And if on top of that, you're not great at winning rounds, then just individual big moments of offense from your opponent can swing things in their favor. So I think he's going to have rough sledding in the UFC. And whatever else you can say about Journey Newson, like, I'm not sure how huge his upside is. He is a dynamic finisher. He's a fast twitch athlete. He hits with power. He has his defensive lapses, but I don't think they're anything that Garcia is really going to be able to make him pay with. So right out of the gate, even though he's a bit of an underdog here, I'm going to take Newson to win this one. I think sometime in the first 2 rounds, he's either going to find Garcia's chin, or Garcia's going to shoot for a takedown. Newson will scramble, sweep, end up on his back, and tap him out. But give me Newson by a 2nd round finish, and I'll call it a TKO on the ground.
All right. So, yeah, we were starting with bantamweight fight. We've talked in the past. I think bantamweight is the best weight class in the UFC and possibly all of MMA. Journey Newson, he likes to fight all the way in or all the way out. He uses a lot of movement. That's because he's probably a plus athlete. He has good power, as you mentioned. Like, his one win, he showed off his power. You said it was like a 1-minute knockout or something like that, less than that. He loves his left hook. He will throw a bunch of spinning attacks, and he has some hard leg kicks. He's an okay wrestler. I wouldn't put him as like a plus wrestler, but he's pretty decent at winning scrambles. Last I checked, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. He might be high. He might be a black belt by now. I'm not sure. He almost caught Ricardo Ramos in a guillotine, which is a good accomplishment. The one thing I'm worried about is he's not that very technically sound, and Randy Costa smashed him in his last fight. You got to worry about that chin. Randy Costa has shown that, though. Like, Randy Costa has shown the ability to come out, like gangbuster, and just start banging shots out. Garcia, he's a 47-year-old guy. He's 30 years old, so you can't be too excited about him coming in. Not to mention, you can't be too excited after Ben just trashed him. He has a very stalking style. He's a boxer. He's a bit flat-footed, but when he gets in there, he's looking to take your head off. He does a lot of winging punches. He also has a good check left hook. Very heavy on his front foot. You go back to his fight on the Contender Series, his feet was getting kicked out on him. That was like the one thing he was doing wrong in that fight. And I love that you mentioned his power. Like, he's not a finisher. Like, he got a knockout on the Contender Series. That was the first of his career. Yep. Which you can't get too excited. I haven't seen too much of his ground game, but he does have 3 submission wins. But the best part of his game is his output and his cardio. I mean, he has 6 decision wins. So he showed that he can go the distance. Now, we're going to disagree right away. I'm going to go with Garcia. Both guys look like very low-level UFC talent at best. But the one thing I like about Garcia is I know he can go hard all 15 minutes. I know he's going to have the output that even though when he's outmatched, he'll have the output to put him in a fight. So I can see him forcing Newson be on his back foot the entire time. Newson's best strategy is probably to circle and throw a lot of leg kicks and maybe get him trying to walk into a shot. However, I'm going to go with Garcia. I'm going to say Garcia still outpoints him, and I'll take Garcia by decision.
There we go. A little bit of dissension right out of the gate at UFC 274. Next up, the strawweights take the cage as it is Ariane Carnelossi versus Lupita Godinez. Carnelossi, the 29-year-old Brazilian, is 14-2 overall. She is 2-1 in the UFC. Lost her debut by 3rd-round TKO to Angela Hill. Since then, she's come back with a pair of finishes. Knocked out Na Liang in the 2nd round at UFC 261 last April. then came back last October and choked out Estela Nunes in the 3rd round at UFC Fight Night Lad versus Dumont. She'll be taking on Godinez. The 28-year-old Mexican is 7-2 overall. She is 2-2 in the UFC, has alternated wins and losses since she joined last April. She lost to Jessica Penne, then rattled off 3 fights in the space of about 6 weeks, beating Silvana Gomez Juarez, losing to Luana Carolina at flyweight, and then beating Loma Logbumi by unanimous decision in November at UFC Fight Night Vieira versus Tate. The odds favor Godinez pretty heavily here. She is minus 210, Carnelossi plus 165 as the underdog. Keith, as you mentioned, these are 2 fighters whose kind of their style, the kind of energy they bring, we both find like pretty endearing. Who do you like in this one and why?
Well, I mean, yeah, these are 2 fighters that we absolutely love. I mean, we've backed both of them. Some of them for their skills, some of them just because we're scared of her. So the odds, to me, there's a lot of value if you like Carnelossi, because to me, this just the physical skills, the brute that she is, and I don't mean that in an insult. I mean that as a compliment. As a fighter, I don't think she should be that big of an underdog against not many people. There's obviously a couple of people in the division I would, but I don't know if Godinez is at this point. Now, I've always been a big Godinez person since I saw her before she came in the UFC, still to now. I just like so many things she does well. She's got great output. I'm so biased towards wrestle boxers, and she fits that. She just marches forward, marches down her foe, cuts angles really good, has some good footwork. So I like what she'll like dart in, force you to get your hands up, and then sidestep. So just a little like, I can't explain it, but it's like a tap dancing move, just little sidestep. So now you got a different angle to attack, almost like a wide receiver trying to get off the line on a cornerback. So she really cuts angles. Her boxing is tight. Everything's inside. Fast hands, has some pretty good snap on her shots. She throws a very accurate right hand. She generates really good power because she steps into her shots, especially for a smaller fighter in the weight class. She's a very aggressive wrestler. Nice entry. She likes picking up her opponent and slamming them. I mean, go back to the Jessica Penne fight. I mean, she was throwing Jessica Penne around like a rag doll. She did the same thing to Silvana Gomez. Loma Logbumi is such a different fighter than Ariane Carnelossi that I don't know if you can kind of compare it, but she was throwing her around. The only person she struggled to take down was Luana Carolina, but Carolina was like way too big for her. She was like a foot taller than. And then even when she was getting it up, because Carolina was so tall, like when most people she'd take off the ground, she was still standing up. And she showed that she's hard to take down, and she showed some really slick BJJ. She got that belly down armbar against Gomez Suarez. Carnelossi, man. Before we talk about Carnelossi, we love her, but if you were at like Planet Fitness or the YMCA and Carnelossi was benching, like, do you think you could spot her? Like, you think you're strong enough to spot her if she asked you?
I'd be afraid to.
Like, or like, if like military press, like she put up more weight than I am. Like those shoulders are something. I mean, we joke all you want, but she's pound for pound like the most impressive build in the UFC. At least definitely for a woman. I mean, she really, when you see her, she doesn't look real.
Yeah,
like, she looks fake.
Yeah, she looks like a comic book character.
Yeah, a video game or something. Yeah. As far as her style, she has so many areas that she needs to grow, but her style is still fun. She just aggressive, charging forward fighter. But she's like a personified battering ram. Like she's just like the female fullback. Like she's looking to hit somebody even when it's not necessary. She charges into the pocket, high output, large power shots. Loves that she digs the body. I said in the past, she's kind of the poor man's version of Jessica Andrade. Like she's not as technically sound, but it's still kind of the same thing you expect from her. The big difference is she tends to chase her opponent, and where Jessica Andrade is much better at cutting off the cage. That's something she needs to learn. She's also a very big swing and miss style because she loads up. she doesn't make a lot of adjustment if it's not working. Like I go back to like the Angela Hill fight. She really struggled with the speed of Angela Hill, and she didn't make the adjustments she needed to. Some things I do like. She throws a lot of hard kicks to the body, hard kicks to the legs. She's really showed that she can get in close quarters and grapple. Though surprisingly, Angel Hill did win the clinch battle, which I'm not surprised because of Angel Hill's Muay Thai style, but I meant just that she couldn't just muscle her. But she really showed her last fight how good of a wrestler she is. She got 5 takedowns on Estela Nunes. As far as prediction goes, like I said, if you go over to Bet USA, to me there really is some good value if you like to play the underdog. I'm not picking the underdog here. I am going with Godinez. But if you could click on the link and head over there and you like to make a bet, I do it right now because I wouldn't be surprised if the odds change a little bit by the time we get to the fight. However, I think her charging style of Carnelossi could really set up Godinez takedowns because she likes a reactionary double. So if she over pursues, we could see Godinez get some takedowns. And we haven't seen Carnelossi off her back. That's one error. So how good is she off her back? I don't know. But on the feet also, I think Godinez might have a little bit of Angel Hill in her where she could just be too quick for her or too technical on the feet. So all that together, I'm going to take Godinez by decision.
Awesome. In looking into this fight, I came to a lot of the same conclusions you did. Like, we both love what Ariane Carnelossi brings just because it's so entertaining to watch. I mean, on some level, no matter how much we enjoy the technical aspects of the game, we want to see one person run straight at the other and just like wing the biggest punches they can and kick him as hard as they can. Ariane Carnelossi does that. She was kind of the perfect fighter to kick off the return of live audiences for the UFC. You remember she was in the very first fight that there were people in the building again, and it was just a joy to watch. There are things I picked up from the Hill fight as well as the Na Liang fight that give me pause when thinking about her against Godinez. And you already broke down the problems against Hill. Carnelossi is someone who runs in straight lines at her opponent and throws a lot of outside winging shots, whether they're kicks to the body or her big like haymakers. And against Angela Hill, who has good footwork and throws straight punches, that's just a recipe to run into a wood chipper all night, which is exactly what happened. And once it started happening, as you pointed out, she didn't really make adjustments. So, I actually picked that one correctly. I picked Hill over Carnelossi, and it played out kind of like I thought. Running straight at Angela Hill is, playing right into what she wants. You mentioned that she got a bunch of takedowns against Nunes, which I agree. Like, her wrestling game, it's not real nuanced. It's not technically perfect. It just kind of runs on her natural power. But against Na Liang, she tried a bunch of takedowns and never got a clean takedown. Most of her takedown attempts ended up with Carnelossi on her butt, and then she would scramble, sweep, and end up in top position. Those things both spell trouble for me against Godinez. On the feet, I think Godinez could give her some of that same treatment Hill did, maybe not to quite the same extent. And then if Carnelossi tries to bring it to the ground, I think Godinez will be able to thwart some of her takedown attempts, and maybe Godinez is the one that comes out on top in those scrambles. For both of those reasons, I am a little concerned for Carnelossi here. I think this stylistically favors Godinez. And like you, I can see there being some value in Carnelossi. She's young. She's making incremental improvements in her game from fight to fight. But as they're currently constituted, I do favor Godinez as well to win this by decision in a probably very entertaining fight. We head now to the men's flyweight division for another matchup between two men looking for their first win in the UFC, one of whom is debuting, one who's just looking to turn things around. And one indicator of the overall strength of this card, this is the only matchup between Dana White's Contender Series fighters on the entire card. It is Kleydson Rodrigues versus CJ Vergara. Rodrigues, the 26-year-old Brazilian, will be making his UFC debut. He won his way into the octagon with a unanimous decision win over Santo Caraolo at Dana White's Contender Series last September. That was his 6th win in a row, primarily in Brazilian promotions, including Jungle Fight. And welcoming him will be Vergara. The 30-year-old San Antonio native is 9-3-1 overall. He is 0-1 since joining the UFC out of last year's season of Dana White's Contender Series, as well as the outgoing Fury FC flyweight champ. He lost his debut to Ode Osborne at UFC 268. That was his first fight out of the Contender Series. He will look to get it turned around here against the debuting Rodrigues. He is not favored to do so, however. He is plus 210 as a greater than 2-1 underdog. Rodrigues minus 280 as the substantial favorite. Keith, how much upside do you see in either or both of these guys, and who do you think gets it done on Saturday?
Yeah, so not to give away my pick yet, but I feel pretty good about one of them. The other one I'm not too high on. I think this could be a little bit of a showcase fight. Not that I think the UFC was trying to set one up. I just think I think I want to be a little higher on one of these guys than the general public is. What would you say the odds were?
Minus 280 for Rodrigues, plus 210 for Vergara.
Okay, so maybe I'm not that. Okay, so maybe you can probably get where I'm going with this. So Vergara, we've seen him in the UFC before. He's exciting. He's an action fighter. He's a pocket boxer. He's basically a brawler. He throws a lot of power shots, loads up on everything, tons of hooks, looking to get it out of there as soon as the fight starts. He can fight out both stances, so the hooks can kind of come from different angles, which you gotta like. But he lacks speed. He lacks athleticism. He kind of telegraphs a lot of his shots, but he's loading up. But he throws hard body kicks. He's physically strong in the clinch. I mean, you go back to the Contender Series fight against Bruno Correa. He dropped him with a knee to the body, which is nice to see. But he doesn't look to get into that position, which I think is probably his best position often. He more wants to brawl. Not much of an offensive grappler. It doesn't have I don't think he has a single sub on his record. Going back to the regional scene, I've seen him rocked a lot. I mean, check out his fight against Jacob Silva. I know we talked about this in the past. Two guys from your area. That was a brawl. That's a great fight. So he showed me an ability to kind of take a punishment and to dig deep and win. And that's kind of the way he's going to win in the UFC. He's going to be in a brawl and he's just going to have the fortitude to win, the desire to win more than a guy who's probably outmatched him. Now, Rodrigues, I mean, I'll tell you, I'm taking Rodrigues. I think he's a really good addition from the Contender Series. One, he's big for the weight class. He's going to be much bigger than Vergara. He's very, very athletic. He has this capoeira background where you see a lot of spinning attacks. He'll throw a flying knee, just really exciting stuff. He has a little bit of Yoel Romero in him, where he just kind of lulls and then explodes, or like a Michel Pereira who kind of does the same thing, kind of makes you feel comfortable, and then all of a sudden he's running up the cage. He's not to that extreme. I don't know if he's gonna do a triple axle kick, but he'll probably try at least one flying knee. But the reason why that stuff works is because he'll settle down and be technical and be sound. He sets things up with some good feints. Though I don't like that he throws a lot of single strikes. He can load up on stuff, but he has so much variety in his attacks. He attacks with everything. They call the 8 points or the 8 limbs. He's throwing all the eight points. A lot of kicks. He on the Contender Series really worked up the inside leg kick. Looks for. I like that he gets inside. In the pocket, and he starts turning into that John Jones, looking for elbows, kind of like he did to Rashad Evans and Glover Teixeira, where he's kind of punching with his elbows, I should say. He avoids strikes by rolling, though, and that's the one thing I hate. Because people ask me, it's funny because this would be for the recap, but someone asked me, they asked me about defensive stuff, and I say, to me, I think there's, and there's more to it, but the 5 basic defenses, and I kind of like the hierarchy of it. Number 1 is just avoiding the shots with great footwork and not being there. Be completely nowhere near. Muhammad Ali, perfect example. Then I like slipping. Then I like parrying, which I talk about, which was kind of my style when I was fighting. Then rolling. And rolling is where you're kind of taking the power with you. You're kind of taking it, deflecting it more off of and you kind of roll with it. And then the last one, I hate is just covering up pillaring. So the whole point is on the hierarchy, it's a little lower on my side. I don't think it's the best idea, but everything else I really like about this guy. In the clinch, strong clinch. On the Contender Series, he jumped to a guillotine, almost had it, which I don't like. But what I like about it is that it was deep. And then he beat him up in we just talked about the elbows from the pocket range. He'll be all the way in and slicing up elbows too in the clinch. He does have 2 subs on his record, but I wouldn't call him a wrestler. The one time I did see him get taken down, he popped right back up, which I love. So Vergara's a really tough SOB. He could make this a brawl. That's his best bet, is to make it a brawl, kind of test Rodrigues' toughness, his ego. But if he doesn't, and Rodrigues stays on the outside, Rodrigues he's too athletic. He has too many weapons, just a big arsenal. I'm very confident in Rodrigues. Give me Rodrigues by second round TKO.
Yeah, I'm basically picking up everything you're putting down here. Vergara's fight against Jacob Silva was a great one. I was there cage side for it. That was one of the Dana White's looking for a fight ones, because like the UFC was in town, and so he was there, and it was a great fight. But while it delivered a great fight, and it's what stamped Vergara's pass to the Contender Series, it also kind of defined his limit, because it showed him to just be a slightly bigger, younger, superior version of Jacob Silva. And I think Jacob Silva is an incredibly fun fighter who's just kind of borderline UFC level at best. Like, he'll pop back up in the UFC at some point. He'll probably go like 1-2 or 1-3 and be back out again. And I mean, that's cool. He was in the UFC twice. But Vergara at his best is just a slightly evolved, slightly less undersized version of that same fighter. I think Vergara, even if he loses here, as you and I are both picking, I think he'll probably stick around, get a third chance. I bet he wins that one, and he'll be another guy that just kind of sticks around as a borderline guy. Probably always fun fights. But yeah, I think there's big upside for Kleydson Rodrigues here, and I'm picking him as well. I could see him just getting a dominant like 30-27 or even 30-26 decision. Vergara's been hurt, but he hasn't been knocked out yet, so I'm not going to pick that to happen for the first time here. But give me Rodrigues going away, like in what, as you put it, will probably end up looking like a showcase fight, even if it wasn't meant as one. Next up are the women's flyweights, as Tracy Cortez takes on Melissa Gatto. Cortez, the 28-year-old, is possibly the only fighter who'll get a hometown welcome here, as she is fighting and training out of Fight Ready in Phoenix. She is 9-1 overall. She is a perfect 3-0 since joining the UFC out of the third season of Dana White's Contender Series. Worth noting that her last fight before the Contender Series, she beat Erin Blanchfield. She beat Maria Agapova on the Contender Series.
Can I stop you for a second, man? No, she didn't. I'm sorry. Erin Blanchfield won that fight. Carry on.
She got a highly...
I don't know if you remember, it's not the Tracy Cortez rule, it's the Erin Blanchfield rule. Every time Erin Blanchfield fights, I have to mention that she beat Tracy Cortez. Carry on, sorry.
No, so allow me to restate. She won a highly contentious split decision over Erin Blanchfield in Invicta in February of 2019. Beat Maria Agapova, no controversy there, on the Contender Series that July. Since then, she's won 3 straight in the UFC over Vanessa Mello, Stephanie Egger, and Justine Kish, whom she beat last April at UFC on ESPN, Whitaker versus Gastelum. Certainly that is a win that has aged well, as Justine Kish just went over to Bellator and beat Ilima-Lei Macfarlane pretty badly. And on top of that, the Stephanie Egger win has suddenly aged well, as Egger's been looking pretty good ever since.
Yeah.
At any rate, she's taking on Gatto. The 25-year-old Brazilian is 8-0-2 overall. She is 2-0 in the UFC. She debuted last August at UFC 265. Ended up winning over Victoria Leonardo between rounds, thanks to an arm injury. Like, Leonardo's elbow was jacked up and out of the socket, but she was winning the fight badly anyway, even before the injury. Then, even more impressively, came back in December at UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Dawkins, and TKO'd Sajari Eubanks in the in the third round with a body kick and then some follow-up punches. Despite that impressive performance, she is the moderate underdog here. Gatto is plus 140, where Cortez is minus 170 as the favorite. Keith, you've already taken your first shots at Tracy Cortez's win streak coming into this. Having said that, do you think she's going to keep the win streak going here, or is this the end of the line?
Yeah, she could. So this is nothing against Tracy Cortez. I think Tracy Cortez is a really good talent. I actually think both these fighters are really good talent. This is actually one of the fights that I'm most excited, and it's one of these ones because of Tracy Cortez missed a little bit of time and stuff. Like this could be much higher up the card. I mean, Tracy Cortez is very marketable. I mean, she's got a big personality. She's very pretty. She's a good fighter. She's undefeated. I mean, So there's a lot to like about Tracy Cortez. Good output. She's a pressure striker. She's got some good footwork. She works behind a busy jab. She likes to follow it into the pocket where she starts unloading power shots. She's got good variety in her attacks. Will go high, go low, throw a lot of kicks. She makes one huge mistake. She throws a lot of naked leg kicks, and one day a really good striker is going to make her pay for that if she does that against the wrong fighter. Manon Farrell would lace her up if you did that. She's also very hittable. Some of it has to do with her style because she likes to march forward, and that's just going to happen. We've seen guys like a Darren Elkins who you're fighting that and you're winning with your pressure.
Excuse me, Darren fucking
Elkins.
Yeah.
She also, the other part of that is she lacks head movements, but she's very physically strong. She gets in the clinch. She will just grueling, dirty boxing battle in there. She has some good timing on her entries. She's a good wrestler. She gets takedowns, like multiple takedowns in every single one of her fights so far in the UFC. She's good at winning scrambles. She's like a smothering top control. Not a Dagestani style, but like a weaker version of Color Esparza. Like she keep you down. You're going to struggle to get back up. She is a submission threat. She likes a lot of the head attacks, guillotine, barbell chokes, Darce chokes. Though for someone who's such a good offensive wrestler, I've seen her taken down more than you'd expect. Weak defensive wrestler I shouldn't say weak, but surprisingly not as good as you expect, I should say. And she kind of struggles to get back up. And it's probably because it's a position she's not used to being in. I'm assuming she kind of wins the wrestling. Gatto, on the other hand, she's very big for the weight class. That's one thing that stands out. Big in the sense like Tracy Cortez is a little more stocky. She's a shorter, stockier girl. Well, and I hate saying that about a girl. It just sounds like insulting. I don't mean that insulting. I think I already said she's very attractive. So don't come at me. I'm not trying to body shame her by any chance. But Gatto is big in she's long, she's lengthy. She's also a forward pressuring striker. Fast hands. She attacks with combinations. Tons of kicks. Go back to her last fight. I mean, it was her best performance. She finished Sujara. You mentioned her best win with a body kick. She really uses her size to bully her opponents. If she gets in the clinch, beat you up with knees. Look for good trips. She's a good grappler. Good back takes. She's a very aggressive submission artist. She'll do one thing different than Tracy Cortez. Cortez likes to control the way you should do it. Cortez will control the position and then look for the submission. Well, Gatto, if the opportunity is there, she's going for it. She'll lose position to get a submission. But the one thing she just groups submission attacks together. If she's on her back, it's chain this one, chain that one, triangle choke, to omoplata, back to a triangle choke, back to an omoplata, to an armbar. She's very active. But that kind of goes both ways. The bad thing about being so active against your back is you don't scramble back up to your feet. You lose. If you don't get the submission, you lose moments because it just looks bad being on your back. So as far as position goes, this is my favorite fight on the card. This is my favorite fight on the early prelims. I think it should be much higher in the card. I think you can make an argument this should be on the pay-per-view. I think it's that good of a fight. You said that Cortez was what was it? Negative what?
Minus 170, Gatto plus
170.
140.
So she's okay. And what was it? I'm sorry. What was
plus
it?
140 for Gatto.
140. Okay. So it's a close line. Not, Cortez is a slight favorite, but not like massive. I'm going to BetUSA.com, and I'm going with the upset. I think there's some good value. I'm gonna take Gatto in an upset. I think she's the bigger fighter. I think she can land some power shots on the feet. If Cortez doesn't set up her takedowns, I think Gatto could actually catch her with a submission. I think we're gonna have some overall battles. I think we have some really fun scrambles. I'm really worried that Gatto might play jiu-jitsu too much, and Cortez is not the fighter you want on top of you. But going back to the Justine Kish fight, Kish had some success. That was a much closer fight than people expect. Sure, I agree with you. It looks way better now a week later than it did then. But I'm going to take Gatto. I'm going to take her by decision in a really close back and forth, slight upset pick.
I'm going to be kicking myself so hard when you were right about this one on Saturday night, and I have to recap it with you. And I was the square, and I took the favorite, and I was wrong, because I can see the upset happening here for all the reasons you mentioned. And the interesting thing is she's willing to play jiu-jitsu from her back, but as long as the fight is on the feet, she tends to be the one putting a pace on her opponent, which is impressive for someone who is as big as she is and clearly probably has a substantial weight cut to get to 125. I mean, that's kind of how she beat Eubanks. That was a fight. Eubanks missed weight pretty badly. She was like 129.5 for that fight. So she was the much bigger woman in the cage. And for the first round, she was Sijara Eubanks. She like threw Gatto around, just muscled her, but she got tired. Gatto kept pushing the issue, and then first thing out of the third round, what's the worst possible thing to do to someone who is tired and sucking wind? You kick him right in the liver. I mean, it was the Giga Chikadze kick, just toes right underneath the rib cage. It took about 3 seconds for Eubanks's brain to realize what had happened, and then she just melted. Really brilliant performance by Melissa Gatto. She's got a lot of weapons that could threaten Cortez here, and I hate that I'm using this term because I don't mean it as a pejorative at all. I'm with you. I think these two women are kind of part of the future of this division, along with Blanchfield, Miranda Maverick, maybe Macy Barber, like just all that age 20 through 28.
Manon Ferro.
Manon Ferro, who at like age 30 is
she's not at that age, but we love her so much. We have to toss.
We love her so much, and she has that same kind of feel because she only has like 10 career fights, kind of like these women do.
I love Manon Ferro so much that we could be talking about like, the best wave of Americans in there, and I'm throwing Manon Ferro in there anyways.
Yeah, be like my favorite, 5 favorite heavyweights under the age of 35, and Keith's like, and don't forget Manon Ferro. Like, just stack 2 of them on top of each other, she'll kick any of their asses. Like, no, she definitely belongs in the conversation because she has that same rising prospect feel, just because she's a bit of a later starter. But
and we're gonna get killed if we don't mention Casey O'Neill.
Oh my goodness, yes. Like Casey O'Neill herself will come get us.
Yeah,
like,
she herself.
Casey O'Neill talked shit to Roxanne Modafferi. You think she cares about me? She'll come slap me in the face. But I mean, my long way around is saying, when I say I think Tracy Cortez is just a tiny bit overrated, I don't mean it in a bad way at all. Because you know what? If I say you're the 10th best in a division and everyone else is saying you're the 5th best, then I think you're overrated, even though I still think you're a top 10 fighter. That's all I mean. I think the marketability and the win streak have led to maybe a little more hype than she strictly speaking deserves, which is why I went out of my way to point out that her last 2 wins actually have been aging pretty well. And all that to say that I still think Cortez is going to win this one. I think she's going to get the better of things on the feet. While they're both aggressive, I think Cortez is more aggressive and throws with a little bit more power. And if they end up going to the ground, I think unless Gatto seriously threatens with submissions, has Cortez fighting off a triangle choke for 2 full minutes or something, or Gatto is able to sweep her and get onto her back, I think that's going to turn into rounds that Cortez wins simply because she'll be on top, and it's going to just look like a winning round for her. So this should be a really fun fight. I am completely open to the possibility that I'm wrong here and we see the slight upset, but give me Tracy Cortez by decision in a fight that, like several on this undercard, might deserve fight of the night, even if they don't end up getting it. We head now to the welterweight division for a matchup between Francisco Trinaldo and Danny Roberts. Trinaldo, the 43-year-old Brazilian, yes, you heard that right, is 27-8 overall. He is 17-7 since joining the UFC out of the first season of The Ultimate Fighter Brazil back, was it 11, 12 years ago at this point? Yeah, he is 17-7 in the UFC. He did win his last time out. It was a split decision over Dwight Grant last October at UFC Fight Night Costa versus Vettori. Previous to that, he had lost a unanimous decision to Muslim Salikov last June at UFC Fight Night Rosenstrike versus Sakai. He'll be taking on Roberts. The 34-year-old Brit who goes by Hot Chocolate is 18-5 overall. He is 7-4 in the UFC. He is on a 2-fight win streak, those two being a knockout of Zalim Imadaev all the way back in November of 2019. Then he came back last October after a 2-year layoff, took a split decision over Ramazan Amaev at UFC Fight Night Lad versus Dumont. The odds on this one of the closer ones on the card. Trinaldo is minus 120 right now. Roberts plus 110. So again, close to a pick 'em on this one. Man, I talked off the top about this fight or this card being full of evidence of takes that I ended up getting really, really wrong in hindsight. Certainly add Francisco Trinaldo is still in the UFC in 2022, is 4-1 in his last 5, and is now fighting at welterweight as 3 things that I absolutely would not have guessed 5 years ago. I mean, when this guy joined the UFC, you know, he was already 33 or 34 years old. He was a 5'8" lightweight. Like, I figured he'd be gone from the UFC within a year or two. I figured he'd go back and probably fight 30 more times in Brazil, you know, just disappear back into jungle fight where he came from. And instead, I mean, he's easily the most accomplished member of Tough Brazil 1. He's the only member of Tough Brazil 1 still in the UFC, even though he was one of the oldest guys on the show. He's still never lost consecutive fights in the UFC. The guy has never had a losing streak in the UFC, and this is his 25th fight. He's moved up from being a 5'8" old lightweight to being a 5'8" old welterweight, and he is still doing fine. That's the good news. The bad news is that he's done it by being perhaps the ultimate nullifier, one of the ultimate nullifiers in UFC history. He has been in a couple of the worst fights I've ever seen. And it's because he's able to force everybody to fight his fight. He manages to slow the pace to a crawl. It's interesting that a 5'8" guy chooses to turn things into distance kickboxing matches, but he does so, and he tends to win them. I mean, he beat Alexander Hernandez in a distance kickboxing match in one of the worst fights I've ever seen. He's a nullifier on the ground, just is able to slow things to a crawl. He's positionally sound. He's strong as an ox. He's even strong for welterweight. It doesn't matter. And against Danny Roberts, I mean, Danny Roberts has a hard time having a boring fight, but I think he's going to succeed here. Roberts is a dazzling offensive fighter on the feet as well as on the ground. He's capable of quick strike submissions. He has tons of power, fast hands, fast kicks, and he also has some defensive lapses. He's 7-4 in the UFC, and without looking, I think all 4 of his losses are finishes, and all the ones I can remember are highlight reel finishes. But it's not going to matter against Trinaldo, just because Trinaldo is not a finisher and doesn't tend to get finished. I think this is going to look comical because Roberts is going to be like a full head taller than him. But this is going to end up being conducted at 2 ranges. It's going to be conducted all the way out, where it seems like Trinaldo should be at a huge disadvantage, but he's going to hold his own. It's going to be conducted all the way in with one or the other of the guys trying to bring the fight to the ground. I think Trinaldo's probably going to be able to take down Roberts from the clinch. And from there, you know, it's going to be Trinaldo just chipping away on top, slowing things to a crawl, and Roberts either accepting bottom position and hoping to get stood up, or just trying low percentage stuff from his back, trying to submit or sweep. Give me Trinaldo in a 3-round decision that will be the anti-fight of the night. I would love to be wrong about this one and get a highlight reel finish out of either guy, but I'm not seeing it. This is my pick for worst fight of the night. You need a smoke break. This fight makes me wish I smoked just so I could take a break.
There you go. Well, Ben, we did start off talking about Journey Newsom, and Journey Newsom, who skipped the hookers that night and went with the marijuana instead. So yeah, if you want to start smoking joints again, just for the record, I am not promoting it, saying you should smoke joints.
And don't smoke tobacco either. It's just not good for you, man.
Yeah, that's sure too. Tobacco's just gross. But if you do, we'll still listen to the show. And if there's a cigarette company who wants to sponsor us, we're shameless enough. We'll throw out all those models.
Yeah.
And if there's like a hooker company out there, they can sponsor us.
Escort service. Oh yes, for sure.
Yeah. We're shameless like that. I thought about not doing a technical breakdown, like kind of go differently and just kind of go with a gut call on this one. But I'm doing that. I decided to do that much later in another fight, so I was like, I don't want to do it too much. So, Trinaldo, he's very unorthodox in his style. I thought your breakdown was really good. Like, he slows down. He has a very Andre Arlovski style to him, where like he somehow gets everyone to do what he wants. That was really spot on. Southpaw, very unorthodox, physically strong, but the move to welterweight at this point of his career probably has more to do with him can't cut weight anymore, so some of that power gets zapped because he's so undersized now. But he has an accurate left hand. I mean, it was I mean, he knocked out Jai Herbert recently that left hand, though he overextends out of place. Very like another guy who's long, Brazilian like him. Cowboy Oliveira would do the same thing. He would like throw a punch and be kind of out of place. But high guard, hard body kicks. But chin might be an issue at this point. I mean, he was almost going back to the Jai Herbert. He was almost knocked out by Jai Herbert in that fight. Was dropped multiple times. He was dropped once, rocked the second time. But he's smart. Like he'll get inside, get a trip takedown, good top pressure, strong ground and pound. He does have 5 submission wins. I keep going back to the Jai Herbert fight because I have a lot of notes on that one. He, surprisingly taken down by Jai Herbert and actually gave up his back in the fight, which is surprising. Roberts, by the way, you mentioned huge for the weight class, can fight out of both stances, good movement, good footwork. He doesn't like being pressured, and he does like the pillar punches, which I hate. But he's got quick hands. His left hand, he's a very left hand happy from the southpaw stance. But he got some nice zip in his shots, plus power, I'd say. He punches from weird angles. A lot of his punches come in looping, which actually similar to Trinaldo. He loves kicks from the orthodox stance. He likes going across the body, which he could do against a southpaw in Trinaldo. Underrated grappler. Like Danny Robbins is a guy who's a much better offensive grappler than I thought he was. He uses his size well in the clinch, can sneak a takedown if you ever pursue. He isn't a smothering grappler. I think if there's a grappling matchup, Trinaldo's one is going to win that one. But he has been taken down a lot in the past, but he does well to get back up. So as far as prediction goes, I'm in a huge conflict because I kind of have to break one of my rules. And I can't pick Trinaldo because I refuse to pick a guy who's over 40 and below like 205. But I can't pick Danny Roberts because I can't pick anybody that lost to Mike Perry. So, so all joking aside, this is a really I mean the odds are perfect on this one. This is a very tough fight to pick. I don't have a lot of confidence. I just don't trust the durability of either guy at this point. That said, I'm going to go the opposite of you. I'm going to go with Roberts. I expect the bomb to finally fall out on Trinaldo. Like, it's going to happen soon. I think he's shown some signs that it might be recently. Plus, Roberts does have a big size advantage. So, give me Roberts by decision.
Next up at UFC 274, we have what, if you've ever listened to our show before, you have heard me refer to as the obligatory unranked heavyweight slobber knocker. It is Blagoy Ivanov versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Ivanov, the 35-year-old Bulgarian, is 18-4 with 1 no contest overall. He is 2-3 since joining the UFC out of the wreckage of World Series of Fighting / Professional Fighters League. He jumped to the UFC before PFL started its season format, just during that one transitional year. Anyway, since then he's been in the UFC, lost to Junior Dos Santos, beat Ben Rothwell, beat Tai Tuivasa. He has now lost 2 in a row, those against Derek Lewis in November of 2019 and Augusto Sakai in May of 2020, both of those by split decision. This is his first time back since the Sakai fight, so it's been almost 2 full years. And waiting for him will be De Lima. The 36-year-old Brazilian who goes by Pizal, Bigfoot, is 19-7-1 overall. He is 8-5 in the UFC. He is 4-2 in the UFC at heavyweight. He started out as a large light heavyweight, moved to heavyweight a couple of years ago. He is 4-2 since moving to heavyweight. So the experiment seems to have been a success. He is on a 2-fight win streak, those against Maurice Green and Ben Rothwell. The most recent of those, the Rothwell fight last November at UFC Fight Night, Holloway versus Rodrigues, and De Lima just knocked Rothwell out in like 30 seconds. Despite that, Ivanov, the slight favorite here. He is minus 155, De Lima plus 125 on the comeback. These guys, man. I mean, if you're going to have 2 just kind of nondescript, non-ranked heavyweights just slugging it out because you got to have a heavyweight fight on the card, this is an interesting one. I mean, Blagoy Ivanov, in some ways, it's hard for me to believe he's only 35 because he's been in the sport for like a decade and he looked 35 then. He just has this kind of like grizzled kind of dad bod paunchy look to him. But he's still only 35. Those of you, I mean, you may or may not remember the thing he was originally famous for. Well, two things. One, he was the first guy to beat Fedor Emelianenko in combat sambo in like forever. You know, so he came to MMA as, oh man, this guy that beat Fedor, you know, and this was while Fedor was still in the middle of his incredible unbeaten streak in MMA. He beat Fedor in sambo, and then
I don't know who this Fedor guy you keep talking about is.
Oh, like this old guy in Bellator.
If he never fought in the UFC, he could never.
He's no good. Like, you know, he beat up on like old UFC guys like Chiasson and Frank Mir over in Bellator, but he's no good. Yeah. At any rate, when Fedor was like the consensus greatest heavyweight of all time and perhaps the top pound for pound fighter in the sport, Ivanov beat him in his own sport, sambo, and that got him a bit of hype. And then the fact that Ivanov was stabbed in a nightclub, like something that like actually like almost nicked his heart, and just called himself a cab. Well, for one thing, finished the fight, like beat up the dude who stabbed him, then called a cab and just, you know, like went to the hospital like with his hand held over his chest. Like,
so imagine you watch your buddy get stabbed like 30 times, hold his heart, call a cab, get home, probably like did surgery, like duct taped his heart back in, then got himself to the hospital, and then find out that same guy lost a split decision to Augusto Sakai. Like, like you can't beat Fedor and Doogie Howser your heart together and be like the most badass dude alive, and also lose to Augusto Sakai. Like, come on. Like, we talk about guys who should have retired. You should have retired after you did that. Like, you can't top that.
That's it. You're never going to top that. And you know, he's been trying ever since. I mean, he remains a relevant heavyweight. Like, I joke about the unranked heavyweight slobber knocker, but I mean, he's not completely irrelevant. Like,
think about for a second him just walking down the beach and you seeing him, and you have this 35-year-old MMA fighter who's a top, whatever, 20, 25 heavyweight, whatever, wherever you want to be, maybe top 15, whatever. You don't know anything about MMA. You just see this guy and you be like, damn, man, look at this old guy who had triple bypass surgery, thinking he's like 5, 60 years old. But like, man, he's like 60, but that's still a little kind of young to have like heart surgery, like kind of little chunky. Like, damn, dude, take care of yourself. Okay?
Yeah.
You know, run a little bit. You know,
you could live a healthier lifestyle. You know.
Yeah, dude.
It's like, oh man, waiting across the cage from this man is Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Man, de Lima, he's a perfect example of how little difference there is between light heavyweight and heavyweight. Because he was a light heavyweight, he decided to switch to heavyweight, and he immediately started weighing in at like 262 pounds. Like, it's just like he pushed a button somewhere and went psst, like that. And
William Knight was a middleweight who now weighs like 165. He did it. I mean, 265. He did it in like a week and a half.
Yeah, like I assume that like William Knight just drank a glass of water and just like everything. Just, but de Lima, you know, he's now a big heavyweight. He's a 265-pound guy. This fight, man, it might actually be interesting, just because Ivanov is a better and more willing striker than I give him credit for. Just because he comes from a sambo background, he's kind of a short, squat heavyweight. I mean, he's not even 6 feet tall. You know, I just always think, yeah, he's just going to match the guy against the cage, try to get a trip takedown, and then, you know, just kind of sit on him. But he's a willing striker and a surprisingly good one. It's not like he got his clock cleaned by Derek Lewis. Like, he hung with the guy for 3 rounds and lost a decision. And the thing that makes that funny is he's taking on the guy with probably the worst ground game in the entire UFC. Like, speaking of defensive grappling, like Marcos Pizarro, especially now that Greg Hardy is gone, Pizarro's probably got the worst ground game in the entire UFC. Like, all of his UFC losses, I believe, are by submission, and in all of them, he's just looked completely hapless. So if this is like your obligatory unranked heavyweight fight, at least it has a decent chance of ending in a finish. Because if they hang out on the feet, I think de Lima might actually plunk Ivanov in a way that Lewis was never able to. De Lima throws some of the hardest kicks in the division, He has fast hands. Like he had pretty fast hands at light heavyweight. Obviously, that's carried over to heavyweight where everybody is slower. Good power in his hands. Good power in his kicks. Like if Ivanov tests him, De Lima is less conservative than Lewis is. Like De Lima might push the issue and actually really start hurting this guy. And then if it goes to the ground, I mean, it's not even all bets are off. This fight is over. If the fight goes to the ground, Ivanov is going to advance to mount, punch De Lima until he turns his back and then choke him out. And it'll happen within 90 seconds. So I am predicting a finish in this one. It's just I've gone back and forth on which way I think it's going to go. And against the odds and perhaps against my own better judgment, I am leaning towards De Lima here. Like, I thought I would never pick this man in a fight again. I'm kind of the opposite of what Keith will say about certain fighters, most notably Jordan Levitt, where like I'm never picking a guy whose striking is that bad until it changes. I find myself never being willing to pick Marcos Pezao just because anyone who's that hapless on the ground, there's too many fights that end up on the ground at heavyweight almost by accident just because they crash into each other. It's too dangerous. But I expect that Pezao is going to get the better of things on the feet in the first round. I think he's going to hurt Ivanov. If this makes it to the second round, maybe Ivanov will have a little more urgency to get things to the ground. I'm going to say De Lima manages to keep sprawling, keep brawling, and give me Marcos Rogerio De Lima by upset via second round TKO.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is a fight that when I first saw it, on the Sherdog page is the fights I have to go through, and I was not excited. And then the more I looked into this fight, I actually did get excited. Like I agree with a lot of what you said. I think Ivanov's a better striker than he gets credit to. De Lima's, it's gonna be fun. Like it's gonna be fun while it lasts. How long it lasts, who knows? I like when I did tape study, I weirdly did a lot of tape study on Blagoy Ivanov for some reason. I get sucked in by the magic of this man. I really wonder where this fight would be on the card if Blagoy Ivanov, who lost his last two fights by split decision, got wins. If he was coming in with a win, he'd be on a 4-fight win streak. He'd have wins over Sakai and Derek Lewis in back-to-back fights. I mean, this would hold a lot of weight right now in the weight class.
Oh, he might be up for a title shot.
Yeah. The worst.
He might be fighting for like Surreal Gun or something.
Yeah, I forgot how bad the Sakai one was. He was going to win that fight. It was 1 round each. It was deep in the third round. It was a back and forth, very close round. You could argue he won the round regardless of what happens. And then Sakai is getting taken out. It's not like they're in the clinch, it's close. He's in the process of like getting hip tossed, and he grabs the fence. And Jason Herzog, who is a fantastic referee, just goes, "Hey, don't grab the fence. Like that should have been a point. He should have been put on his back. Like it should have been turned into an easy victory for Ivanov." But anyways, you mentioned short heavyweight, minus athlete, flat-footed, bit of a stationary target. But he's a southpaw. He uses feints really well to kind of cut angles. And like you said, he's a much better striker than you think. Busy jab on the outside. He stays out until he blitzes in with a combination. He does really well to slide in the pocket where he likes to battle. He really likes to lead with like his straight left, like his power punches. He'll lead with like the rear punch, which it doesn't happen too much. He'll attack the body and the inside. Does really well to get there. Kind of like whips his left hand from weird angles. He lacks one punch power. I mean, that happens when you're undersized. So obviously he's a heavyweight, so every heavyweight is power. But I mean, like when you think of the crackers in the division, he's not one of them. He doesn't check leg kicks. That's something that Augustus Sakai had a really lot of success against him. But if he gets in the clinch, he's strong there. I mean, when you have a guy like Daniel Cormier talking about like how good he is, you mentioned it, winning combat sambo against Fedor Emelianenko. You got to be good in these close quarter battles. He likes to grow in there. He's a good wrestler. Sometimes he'll reach for like a snatch single without setting up, which I don't like. I think some of that has to do with age, not having the explosiveness of driving through. But DC talked about like he likes to go with the overhook and like get inside and do the whizzer kick, which is a nice technique. And you mentioned he's got like a legendary chin. I mean, this guy's never been knocked out, and he eats shots from Derek Lewis. The one thing that's concerning recently is that he did slow down. Even though I thought he should have won that there or should have won the fight against the guy, he did show. I don't know if he's necessarily slowed down or if he just has terrible body language that it looks like he's slowed down. Now, that probably happens when a guy is like 35 years old, but it looks like he like had a stroke on one side of his face. So and he's got a huge scar in the middle of his chest. He may never have good body language, but he looks like he kind of gets lumpy in his. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
He just now De Lima.
He looks like a real life Fred Flintstone. Like he's got the kind of like constant 5 o'clock shadow and the kind of dumpy body. He looks like a real life Fred Flintstone.
Oh my God! From now on, we gotta call Blagoy Ivanov. Blagoy Yabba Dabba Doo Ivanov. That's just imagine if that was the introduction. Bruce Buffer. Blagoy Yabba Dabba Doo Ivanov. Okay, back to De Lima. That's the joke of the year. If we do like a best of, that's gotta be on there. I don't know if the listeners are gonna like that joke because listen, I'm an old dad, so that's probably why I like the joke so much. That's a good one. The listeners, let me know if I'm overreacting to Ben's Fred Flintstone. De Lima, just a massive dude. Like you mentioned, the guy tips the scale at 265, which is ironic considering he used to be a light heavyweight. He's a brawler. He wants a wild throw haymakers, throw hard. And he's been showing off that the power has come to him at heavyweight. I mean, he knocked Ben Rothwell dead. He has 13 knockouts in his career. He does throw some hard kicks, hard leg kicks. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I have no idea where he got his black belt from. I think it's one of those like it's got to be like where every kid gets a trophy kind of thing where they just, oh, that guy's been here for 10 years, give him something. Because I haven't grappled in a really long time. And I'm not certain that like De Lima could beat me in a grappling match. Like he probably would. Like, let's be wrong. But the odds wouldn't be that big. I mean, Alexander Royval like bullied this guy, made him look like he never grappled. He like fat guy choked him.
Yeah.
like laid on his jaw, like there you go.
Choked him. Yep.
Yeah, like it's like when I'm playing fetch with my dog and he won't give me the ball back, I gotta like hold him down and I gotta like I gotta like hold his head down and take the tennis ball and he just like he tennis balls. Yeah, that was De Lima. So this comes down to if De Lima will catch Ivanov and if Ivanov's chin kindly somehow shows decline. However, you have much more. Like I agree with what you're saying. Like he could catch Ivanov, and it wouldn't shock me because he's that big of a dude. But this dude 8 shots from Derek Lewis, which you could argue is that's why his chin won't take anymore. I say Ivanov gets inside. I think he takes it down. I think everything you said on the ground. Once he gets him down, clinch takedown. I think he works to the mount, and I'm gonna say Ivanov gets him out of there in the second round, and we'll have a gay old time.
We will. You'll beat him, jump to the top of the cage, slide down off the dinosaur table, like the giant brontosaurus steak will tip his car over and it'll be great.
We have to, you know what the worst thing is? There's probably a listener out there has no idea what the hell we're talking about. Cause they're like, there's probably like a 21-year-old listener that, or
like
they think
never.
They think the Flintstones, they think like Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah, like their idea of Saturday morning cartoons is like, SpongeBob, like
yeah.
It's a generational thing, guys. We're old.
Yeah, we're old.
Next up on the UFC 274 prelims, Keith and I have mentioned several bouts that on the action they promised, on their divisional relevance, you could argue they should be on the main card. This one's certainly no exception. It is Brandon Royval versus Matt Schnell. Royval, the 29-year-old Colorado, fighting out of Colorado, Factory X product, is 13-6 overall. He is 3-2 since joining the UFC as a former LFA flyweight champ. He won his last time out. It was a split decision win over Rogerio Bontorin. in January at UFC on ESPN, Cater versus Chikadze. That put the Skids on a 2-fight losing streak for him against Brandon Moreno and Alexandre Pantoja. He'll be taking on Schnell, the 32-year-old Mississippi-born, Louisiana-bred, now fighting out of Houston fighter is 15-5 with 1 no contest overall. He is 5-3 with 1 no contest since joining the UFC as the former LFC, before it was LFA, flyweight champ. Schnell, last time out, lost via unanimous decision to Rogerio Bontorin at UFC 262. Bontorin missed weight for that fight and tested positive subsequently for a banned diuretic. So it was overturned to a no contest, but he apparently didn't take enough of the diuretic since he ended up missing weight anyway. Prior to that, he'd beaten Tyson Nam by split decision at UFC on ESPN, Chiasson versus Magny last January. Royval is one of the higher favorites on the card. He is minus 280, Schnell plus 210 on the comeback. I'll say this about Brandon Royval. He's 3-2 in the UFC, but he has faced such an absolute murderer's row. I mean, since he's been in the UFC, beat Tim Elliott, beat Kai Kara France, finished both those guys, by the way, lost to Brandon Moreno, lost to Alexandre Pantoja, and then just barely lost to Rogerio Bontorin. I mean, I'm not saying that he is, but I'm saying that based on what we know for a fact, you could make an argument that he's the 3rd or 4th best flyweight in the UFC. Like, the only guys he's lost to are Moreno and Pantoja, who might be the number 2 and number 3 guys in the division right now. And you like that win over Kai Kara France has just been aging super, super well, and he choked him out. Like, Royval, in a division that has quite a few wild men in it, he is one of the wildest of the wild. He might have a better record in the UFC if he were just a little bit more measured and conservative, but he wouldn't be as awesome. He goes for broke on the feet as well as on the ground. And, he got caught out of position by Brandon Moreno and got plunked. He lost, after some wild scrambles on the ground against Alexandre Pantoja, but it also led him to just be able to put away people like Tim Elliott and Kai Kara France with really impressive stuff. He's facing a guy in Schnell. Schnell is another guy that, I think he is probably better than his record in the UFC reflects, but he hasn't, for the most part, faced the level of competition that Royval has. And I think that's going to show here. I think Royval, he's going to be bigger than Schnell. Like, neither of them is undersized for a flyweight, but Royval is a big flyweight. And I don't know that Schnell is going to be able to take advantage of Royval's defensive lapses on the feet or especially on the ground. And I don't think he's going to be able to win the gas war. Like, even if Royval's frenetic pace does have him the more tired guy in the 3rd round, I think Royval, if the fight isn't over by then, Royval will probably be 2 rounds ahead, and it might be too late for Schnell to get it back. I like both these guys a lot. I'm always partial to Houstonians, and Matt Schnell is like living and training out of Houston now. War MMA, who are friends of mine, Houston Muay Thai. But I do think this is Royval's fight to lose. Given kind of their tendencies, Royval could get it done on the ground or on the feet. I'm going to say it's more likely to happen, or at least start, on the feet. Give me Brandon Royval by 2nd round TKO. This should be an absolutely wild fight while it lasts. I expect both guys to have their moments of momentum, but in the end, Royval's aggression, greater finishing ability, and just kind of being larger and more well-rounded is gonna carry the day for him.
Yeah, dude, this is such a fantastic fight. Like, I'm going to stop doing it. I probably said this like 10 times already, but I'm going to stop saying, like, why the hell is this great flyweight fight so far down on the card, and we get aging guys who probably shouldn't be in the UFC on the pay-per-view card. But, like, you want a division to get over, how about you stop marketing your fighters in that division? Like, it'd be like my daughter had to sell fundraiser tickets, and if you don't ask somebody to buy a ticket, not going to sell. Like, you don't want to sell flyweights? Well, yeah, keep burying them on the card. I'm much higher on Schnell than you are. I like Schnell a lot. I mean, he's well-rounded. Well, hold on. You know, I think the best thing would happen is if somehow Brandon Royval like misses weight this week or something happens, and like Alex Perez comes out of the woodworks, weighs in, makes weight, and we finally get Matt Schnell versus Alex Perez that we've been breaking down for like
4 times.
Yeah.
I think.
So
Yeah.
everything if you ever listen to my breakdowns of Schnell versus Perez that got canceled like 100, I'm going to read exactly the same thing because like nothing changed about Schnell since then. I mean, he probably got a little bit better. He's well-rounded, good footwork. He uses pressure well. Very aggressive striker. Has some good pop in his hands. He rocked Pantoja in the fight. He hurt Monterrey in a lot in the fight. He uses feints to set up openings from distance. He slides in the pocket, kind of brawls a little bit, and chin might be an issue. He's been rocked. Go back to like the Pantoja fight. Tyson Nam rocked him. Very underrated grappler. He's got 8 submission wins. He likes to attack with like guillotines and attacking the neck. Can get subs off his back, triangles, arm bars. Might be a little overconfident in his grappling is when he pulled guard against Pantoja. It was not a good idea. But he did quickly realize that was a mad mistake and worked up to get back to his feet pretty easily. Now, Brandon Royval, extremely athletic, long, lengthy, southpaw, very unorthodox style. Constantly moving forward, huge output, long jab, but he really uses his length to set up to close the distance, and not necessarily close the distance to wrestle, but just get inside. He'll throw a jab or a teep kick and just follow those in. Very like Tamine style of his game, where he actually wants to be in close. He'll throw out like even a spinning attack to kind of get the opponent to back up towards the cage so he can kind of follow it in. He does lose power because he hangs his hands low, not the most tactical. But great kicks everywhere, all areas of the body. I really like his step-in knee game. That's like the best part of his ability, in my opinion. Has some major holes defensively, though. He drops his hands. Kai Kara-France caught his chin, right, because he had his hands dropped. He doesn't check leg kicks, but the fight hits the ground. He's a wizard on the ground. A weak defensive wrestler, and that's probably because he doesn't mind the fight getting on the ground. And he'll also like make it easier by jumping to a guillotine. But he's got those long legs, those long arms. He uses great flexibility. Kind of reminds me of a much weaker version of Charles Oliveira, where he's going to start tossing up submission attempts. And he's really good at like catching subs in a scramble. If a scramble ensues, he just kind of keeps his hips moving. They're very like wrestling, funk style wrestling. If people know what I'm talking about, where he's just kind of rolling through things. He will stay on his back and look for subs. And if he's not getting it, he'll lose time. And like perfect example is Brandon Moreno. But you can't take 1 second off. He'll get you a submission. So prediction goes, this is a great fight. I think we're going to have a war. I think both guys are good on the feet. I think both guys are on the ground. But when I first thought of this fight, it's something that just stood in my mind. I just see Brandon Royval catching a submission in a scramble. I think there's some really good value on Schnell, though, especially because Royval's style coming forward can eat a shot and Schnell show he's that power. So if you're going to bet and you like to place underdog bet, there's some really good value. I think the line should be much closer. I think Royval should be the favorite, but I think it should be like -140, not this big. So you can get some value there. Guys, let's get this fight on the pay-per-view. Like this, it's a shame that this fight is buried down. Like to me, if they announced that this fight was headline a fight night, I'd be excited. Yeah. Like that's how good of a matchup. It's a long time we just had like ranked flyweights should just headline a fight night. But anyways, yeah, I love this fight. Give me Royval by second round submission.
There you go. 2 picks for Royval to get it done as the substantial favorite, but recognizing the threat and the potential value in Matt Schnell. Next up are the female featherweights as Macy Chiasson takes on Norma Dumont. Chiasson, the 30-year-old Louisiana native fighting out of Texas, she is a Fortis MMA product, is 7-2 overall. She is 5-2 since joining the UFC out of the 28th season of The Ultimate Fighter. However, at featherweight or featherweight plus, and I'll get to that in a moment, she's just 1-1. She fought most recently last December at UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Dawkins. That was the aforementioned featherweight plus fight as she missed even the featherweight limit, weighing in at 148.5 and ended up losing by second round submission to Raquel Pennington. That snapped a 2-fight win streak for her over Marion Renault and Shayna Young. She's taking on Dumont, the 31-year-old Brazilian who goes by the Immortal, is 7-1 overall. She is 3-1 in the UFC. She is 2-1 at featherweight. She's on a 3-fight win streak. She lost her UFC debut to Megan Anderson by first round ground and pound TKO. Since then, she has rattled off 3 straight wins over Ashley Evans-Smith in a bantamweight fight for which she missed weight, then over Felicia Spencer and Aspen Ladd, both at featherweight. The most recent of those, the Ladd fight, was the headliner of UFC Fight Night 195 last October. Odds on this one, fairly wide. Dumont minus 240, Chiasson plus 190 as the underdog. Man, these two women they're kind of an indication of the state of the featherweight division worldwide, and specifically of the featherweight division in the UFC. Just a week and a half ago, as of when this show airs, Chris Cyborg, the former UFC featherweight champ, now Bellator featherweight champ, defended her title for, I believe, fourth time, and her contract with Bellator is up. And in deciding what to do, Cyborg, being kind of honest and heart on her sleeve as always, talked about what she might do going forward. And she pointed out that even though she did not leave the UFC under the best terms, and even though her relationship with UFC president Dana White has been fraught at best, that, it's business. I'd be willing to go back there, but they don't have much for me. And I couldn't agree more. The UFC featherweight division, it's bare to start with, but it's especially bare when you look at the women who are true featherweights. And by true featherweights, I mean women who can't make 135, because a lot of Cyborg's reign in the UFC featherweight division was her really crushing the Invicta bantamweight division one by one, as the UFC would pluck them, move them up to 145, and let Cyborg kill them. Just, in a row. It was like Lena Landsberg, Yana Kunitskaya, like just one after the other, like 3 or 4 in a row. Chiasson and Dumont might be the only two real featherweights left in the division. And even in their case, it's not for lack of trying. They've both tried to make bantamweight. They both seem to have come to the realization that it's not working, and they're meeting at featherweight now. And because of that, this thing might be a title eliminator. Megan Anderson is nowhere to be seen. Felicia Spencer is retired. Those were the two kind of, again, quote unquote, real featherweights. In their absence, this might be it. It's just an example of the state of the division, because both of these are good fighters. They are skilled women with, good athletic gifts, but women's featherweight is kind of like men's heavyweight. You just well-rounded fighters who are good everywhere, and really standout athletes are just really few and far between. A lot of your top fighters kind of have flaws there. Certainly, Macy Chiasson is a great example of that. She is someone who has a plethora of physical gifts that present matchup problems for most fighters at 135 or 145. She is a big woman. Like, she's listed at 5'9". She seems taller when she's in the cage. Like, I know she's not as tall as Megan Anderson, but it feels that way. And she's got like a frame with like long legs, long arms, reach, but then also has some muscle on her frame. She isn't just like, she's not a twig. Like, she is a powerful woman. But in spite of that, and you in talking about another fight on this card mentioned the Tim Means phenomenon. She has the Tim Means phenomenon where she has reach over everybody she fights, but nonetheless, she chooses to use her frame to her best advantage close in. Like she throws long kicks, but doesn't really use a jab much. So if you can get inside her first couple of long kicks, you're already in the phone booth with her, and she embraces that. Like, she wants to clinch and then like knee you and elbow you. And it's unfortunate because while it works on a lot of people, she never adjusted against Lena Landsberg. Like, she fought in Lena Landsberg's wheelhouse. Like, she calls herself the elbow queen for a reason. She forced the clinch in all 3 rounds, even though she was losing as she went along, and just never had an answer for it. Lena Landsberg, even though she was smaller and probably not as physically strong, just outstruck her in the clinch for the last 2 rounds of that fight, to the point where she kneed her in the face in the last minute of the fight, and I thought she was about to knock her out. That physically bullying style works when she's the much bigger woman, But two of the women that Macy Chiasson has beaten in the UFC, like Shayna Young and Sarah Morris, are fighting at flyweight on this card. Or not, sorry, Sarah Morris, like Gina Mazzani. Like Shayna Young and Gina Mazzani, not on this card, but they're fighting at flyweight against like women her own size or of comparable size. It hasn't worked that well. Raquel Pennington just handled her. And Raquel Pennington is just kind of a good sized bantamweight that moved up. Lena Landsberg already mentioned. That spells trouble against someone in Dumont that I spoke earlier about all the many takes that I had wrong on this card. Norma Dumont is never going to get a win in the UFC is not aging well for me. When she got ground and pounded out with like Megan Anderson, like just sitting on her chest and pelting her, I was like, oh, this is terrible. Like Norma Dumont's going to lose one more and be gone. She has won 3 straight since then, and she's looked increasingly impressive. I mean, she beat Felicia Spencer. And while you can point to part of the problem maybe being that Spencer didn't really seem to try to bring the fight to the ground, even though that's where she was best, and she was losing the striking battle, like it's still impressive. Then just beating Aspen Ladd, who normally just physically bullies everybody, but just won 5 straight rounds against Ladd. And again, even though you can make the case that that was a weird fight for Ladd, the one more famously, coach / boyfriend Jim West chewed her out between rounds. Dumont is beating women who are at least her own size and are used to being the bully, and she's making it look kind of easy. And I think that spells bad news for Chiasson. Chiasson, for as much as she is physically strong and tall and uses leverage in the clinch, is not a great defensive wrestler. If Dumont wants to get this thing to the ground, I think she's going to be able to. And Chiasson is an opportunistic grappler. Like, she has good submissions. She can swept and took Pani Kianzad's back in their second fight and choked her out with relative ease. But Dumont's going to have the advantage if they're on the ground. I think she's physically stronger on the ground. She's at least as technically sound. And conversely, if Chiasson decides she wants to get this thing to the ground, I don't think she's going to be able to get Dumont down. So this is just built for Dumont to win. I expect that it's probably going to look a bit like the Ladd or the Spencer fight, where Dumont just kind of wins a straightforward kickboxing match. A lot of it will probably take place inside of in boxing range, in Dumont's preferred range. I think she'll be strong enough to kind of extract herself from any clinch exchanges that Chiasson wants to initiate. And I think this is just a straightforward, like three round kind of washout for Norma Dumont. And then the question is just whether Amanda Nunes wants to meet her there, or, keep fighting at bantamweight after this upcoming fight against Juliana Pena.
Yeah. So one thing that stands out to me breaking down this fight that you said was that, like, Dumont is much better. Like, you had a really bad take. Like, I wasn't much higher on her. I mean, she's much better than I originally thought. I mean, she did not look like, when she first entered the UFC, a UFC talent, and now we're talking about her being the next title challenger if she wins. She's a very technically sound, poised striker. She can fight out of both stances. She's not a great athlete, but she makes up for it just by being technical. She's fast. She's got good vision, busy jab, really like a hard, stiff jab with it. Attacks with combinations. I really love her fade back right hand counters. She goes down to the body. She batters legs with kicks. Defensively, she's got some strength. She parries punches, which I love. She can wrestle. She can get, which was the thing that looked like she had no ability, and she can get in the clinch. She's stronger in the clinch. Good dirty boxing. She shows some good takedowns. Showed some great takedown defense against Aspen Ladd and Felicia Spencer. The one time against Felicia Spencer when she was taken down was really late in the fight. She kind of struggled to get up, but at that point it was like she probably already won. Move over to Chiasson. She's huge for the weight class, all the ways you described her. Long arms, long legs, everything, big reach. She has plus power, just as that big guy strength, or I should say big female strength or something. And you mentioned that Tim Mean style, like that's the thing I wrote down is she wants to battle in close, but she has a lot of defensive holes. She has a good chin, and the reason why we know she has a good chin, it's because she doesn't move her head, so she gets hit a lot. I mean, Shayna Young, who's I understand that it looks a little better than it did then, but Shayna Young was teeing off on her before Chiasson found a way to win. She hates pressure. Raquel Penton like folded her with just her output. She's strong on the clinch. Like she's physically strong. She got some good dirty boxing, good elbows. Her knees are definitely her best weapon. But you mentioned she's a weak defensive wrestler. She did get taken down by Mari Renault and did show ability to get back to her feet. But like she gassed against Lena Landsberg. She gassed against, or I shouldn't say she gassed against Raquel Pennington, but she was fading while Raquel Pennington was getting stronger, which Raquel Pennington does that to a lot of fighters. But Chiasson has really not lived up to her potential. Like I thought she was going to be really good coming off Tough. She was a bit of a bully on Tough. However, as things have gotten harder, she has not shown ability to dig deep. I'm really starting to think that she's just a front runner, and when she's not, like you mentioned, not just physically so much more gifted than somebody, she struggles. I think Dumont has already beaten better fighters than Chiasson. I actually think this might be a step down for her in competition. I see her landing good shots on the feet. I see her stuffing some takedowns. Really, the only way Chiasson wins if she gets to the clinch and she can just get to that plumb clinch and batter her with knees and elbows. Or she's made huge improvements and she's kind of built on the potential that we've seen, which really is a possibility because she's shown flashes. But until those flashes come on, I'm just gonna look at it as like we look at other like prospects in all the sports who like you see flashes of them until they can put together a full season. I'm not gonna believe it. So give me Dumont by decision.
Next up, we have a welterweight matchup that, at least as the card is currently structured as of a week out from fight night, is the top prelim of UFC 274. It is Randy Brown versus Kalinn Chaos Williams. Brown, the 31-year-old Jamaican by way of New York, is 14-4 overall. He is 8-4 in the UFC since joining back in 2017 or so, 2016. He has won his last two. He took a unanimous decision over Jared Gooden last October at UFC Fight Night Dern versus Rodrigues. Prior to that, he choked out Alex Cowboy Oliveira in the first round at UFC 261 in April. He is taking on Williams. The 28-year-old Michigan native is 13-2 overall. He is 4-1 in the UFC. He debuted in the UFC, setting a record as the first fighter ever to debut in the UFC with 2 straight knockouts in 30 seconds or less. The victims in that case, basically half of Fortis MMA's division in Alex Morono and Abdul Razak Al Hassan. He then lost a unanimous decision to Michel Pereira in December of 2020. Since then has come back with 2 more wins over Matthew Semmelsberger and Miguel Baeza. The most recent of those, the Baeza fight, was a 3rd-round TKO at UFC Fight Night Holloway versus Rodrigues in November. Odds on this one, close, but Williams is the slight favorite. He is minus 130. Randy Brown available at even money, that is plus 100. Keith, this is an interesting one. Certainly a wrong take on my part. I figured Chaos Williams would be fun for a couple of highlights, but would hit a ceiling pretty quick. But instead, he is now 4-1 in the UFC welterweight division, and there's really not a bad win among them. Like he's proven himself to be. He's already past the point. Like I belong in the UFC. He's now cruising towards I'm a potential contender here, and because he debuted with such a couple of explosive knockouts, you know, against my poor buddy Alex, and then again against Al Hassan, he has that certain sizzle that he's not going to have to do the, you know, Santiago Ponzinibbio or Vicente Luque or Leon Edwards thing and win 9 fights in a row to get in the top 10. Like he strings together a couple more, and he's going to be on the rankings radar, both for the UFC itself and probably for us as participants in the Sherdog panel. Do you think he gets it done here? You know, and how do you think this fight plays out?
Yeah, everything you said, though, I think you could also say about Randy Brown. Like, Randy Brown strings together a couple more wins. He might be in the rankings discussion. So I'll admit this about Randy Brown. I've never had a great feel on him. Like one fight, he'll look so bad, and I'll be like, no, I'm not picking again. He's not that good of a talent. And then the next fight, he looks great. So, take everything I say about it with a grain of salt. Like I still haven't have a verdict on him yet. He's a long and lengthy fighter, welterweight. He works behind a long jab, has that up jab style, hangs his hands low, which is playing with fire with someone like Chaos. He throws the jab from weird angles, so he lands with it effectively. He's pretty elusive, a lot of kicks. He opened to calf kicks because he has those long legs, big target. Vicente Luque dropped him with those kicks, but and it's kind of like a theme. He likes to use his size to get inside. Strong plum clinch, knees inside, just tosses him up to the chin so easily. Because when he gets inside, he has those long arms that he can get double underhooks, work to a body lock, has like tall man strength. Will look for takedowns, similar on the outside, similar to like Michael Chiasson, where he's more just reaching and using his arms to get it. Not a strong topside grappler, but he does have some 4 submission wins. And if he's taken down, he has shown an improvement to get back up to his feet. Now, Chaos Williams, a lot of defensive flaws. Like drops his hands, keeps his chin high. He's not a great athlete. He isn't that fast, but he makes up for everything by just pressing forward and having earth-shattering power. I wrote down power like 5 times when I was doing notes on him. If he touches you, he has a chance to put you to sleep. He has that great equalizer. Hard calf kicks, though he does throw him naked and can get caught with a big shot. Because of that, it does drop his hands a little. Not much of an offensive grappler, and you go back to like the Michel Pereira fight. Michel Pereira was taking him down, which is a big worry. If I'm Randy Brown's corner, I'm looking at the Michel Pereira fight, and I'm saying Randy's a better wrestler than Michel Pereira. Different style of their wrestling. Like Michel is definitely like a guy who can shoot, but I'm telling Randy, close the distance, don't stay in striking range, get in the clinch, lock your hands, use your long legs, get your leg behind, trip him out, and work him on the ground. I don't know if Chaos Williams can take that takedowns from Brown if he does that, and that's what I'm going to say happens. I'm going to say he does it all 3 rounds. I'm going to say Brown wins a decision, just a heavy wrestling win for him.
Hey, there we go. After, what are we, like 9-10 fights into this card? We've both picked some upsets. We've disagreed on some fights. I believe this is the first fight where we are agreeing on an upset because I like Randy Brown in this one as well. I already mentioned earlier in this segment that, I kind of dismissed Chaos Williams' staying power in the UFC. I was wrong about that. But like you, I also underestimated Brown for a while, and I know why. It is not just because of what you mentioned that, he'll look great for a couple fights and then like lose real bad. Like his losses are so bad that they are memorable and stick out in your mind. Like his loss to Nico Price in 2018 is something that we will never see again. Like, how did you guys even get in that position where Price, they were on the ground. Price kind of had Brown's head trapped in place with his calf and then hammer fisted him to death and Brown couldn't get away. It was one of the weirdest knockouts ever. But yeah, every time he loses, it's bad. Like the Vicente Luque fight, he hasn't lost any bad fighters. Vicente Luque, Bilal Muhammad, Nico Price. I mean, even Michael Graves. Like Michael Graves is probably the 3rd best guy from that season of Tough after Usman and Luque, and it's not he's not in the UFC because he like lost his way out. He left the UFC without losing. He just moved on and did other things. Like he's not lost to bad fighters, but nonetheless, I kind of lumped him in with that welterweight action fighter category, like with your Prices and your Luques and, even like your Moronos. But he's rising out of that now. He's beating the guys in that range. He's beating Brian Barberena. He's beating Alex Oliveira, Jared Gooden, those types. Here, because he's capable of losing spectacularly at any given moment and he has like those low hands, like you mentioned, if Williams comes out and starches him in 30 seconds, is anyone that shocked? Well, of course not. But if that doesn't happen, I think we're going to see the good Randy Brown here. He is a titanic welterweight, and you mentioned that he also has that thing where he uses his his height and uses it to become a dangerous in-fighter. I mean, he reminds me a little bit of a Ben Saunders or Mike Swick type, where just nasty knees inside because he's so tall, a really fast guillotine that works because he's so tall, and it's just real easy for him to, like, loop something over the top. He only has a few submissions, but they're almost all guillotines, and they were almost all like started standing. And then, yeah, an underrated offensive wrestler, although in his case, it's going to be something like, picking an ankle from the clinch and turning it into a single leg and like dumping him over. I see all of those as possible ways to victory. And then, despite the fact that he's such a huge guy, if it goes late, I think Brown's gas tank is going to hold up at least as well as Williams. All those things point their way towards Brown probably winning this. If this gets out of the first round, I'm going to feel better and better about it as it goes along as well. But give me Randy Brown by decision in a fun fight. The UFC 274 main card opens up with a lightweight matchup that really, would have been an interesting attraction anytime in about the last 12 or 13 years. It is Donald Cerrone and Joe Lauzon in a matchup of two of the UFC's most reliable action fighters of the post-tough era. Cerrone, the 39-year-old Colorado native, is 36-16 with 2 no contests overall. He is 23-13 with 1 no contest in the UFC. However, it's worth mentioning, 23-13 with 1 no contest. He has bounced back and forth between lightweight and welterweight throughout his UFC run. He's 17-6 at lightweight. At welterweight in the UFC, he's basically a 500 fighter. At lightweight, he's much more than the 500 fighter. Again, 17-6. However, this is his first lightweight fight since September of 2019 when he faced Tony Ferguson at UFC 238. Since then, he has had 5 straight fights at welterweight, including the Ferguson fight. He is 0-5 with 1 no contest. It's a 6-fight winless streak that goes back well over 2 years at this point. He's lost to Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje, Conor McGregor, Anthony Pettis, had a draw with Nico Price that was then overturned when both of them tested positive for prohibited substances. And most recently, a first-round TKO loss to Alex Morono, which was last May at UFC on ESPN, Rodrigues versus Watterson. He'll be taking on Lauzon, the 37-year-old native of Bridgewater, Massachusetts. So Bridgewater, that's halfway between Boston and Providence. So I can only assume that Keith hates him and thinks he's terrible.
Bridgewater is like it's not in between Providence and Boston. It's kind of I think east.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but north of you, near to Boston.
Enough. Close enough.
Okay. Okay. Everything is really close in New England. He is 28-15 over the course of his career. Came to the UFC through the 5th season of The Ultimate Fighter. He is 15-12 in the UFC, and he has not fought at all since October of 2019. He knocked out Jonathan JSP Pierce in the first round at UFC on ESPN, Reyes versus Weidman back in October of 2019. That put a stop to a 3-fight losing streak for him. And speaking only for myself, I kind of assumed he had retired without officially saying anything. We would see him periodically cornering his fighters, Randy Costa, fighters like that. But I figured he was done. But he is back. He is back in a matchup of marquee names from 2007, 2012, 2017. Again, 2 of the UFC's all-time leaders in bouts, meeting here. I do not envy the folks that had to make these odds, considering all the unknowns here, but it is currently Cerrone -175, Lauzon +145 for those out there who dare to dip a toe into these waters. I'll say this much. If they had made this fight like 2 years ago, like say right after the Lauzon versus Pierce fight, I would feel a lot better about Lauzon's chances in this one, because on a most fundamental level, theirs is a matchup that has some, it favors Lauzon in certain ways. Like Donald Cerrone is a slow starter, always has been from when he was on his way up, like before like all the way up in the WEC days to his prime in the UFC, where, he made his way into the top 5, he challenged for a title. He's always been a slow starter. And I don't mean a slow starter like John Jones, where he takes 3 minutes or takes the whole first round and just kind of feels out the range and then turns on the jets. I mean that for the first 3 or 4 minutes of a fight, it's like Donald Cerrone is remembering how to fight. And people who press him during that time tend to just catch him flat-footed, and he looks like he's never been hit before. He doesn't know how to react. I'm not saying that, he's a better fighter than Conor McGregor or Rafael dos Anjos or anything like that. But the way that those guys both caught him within like the first 90 seconds of their fights is more a reflection of just that weird quirk about Donald Cerrone's like fight brain, his fight style. Once he settles in, he is one of the toughest, most durable, adaptable fighters we've ever seen. But for the first half of the first round of a fight, it is danger with Donald Cerrone. And on the flip side of that, you have Joe Lauzon, one of the fastest starters in UFC history. Like before tough, after tough, during his run, even when he appeared to be shot and just had nothing left, for the first 2 minutes of the fight, he is deadly dangerous. He's a quick strike submission artist, a powerful, recklessly aggressive striker with, powerful, like deceptively powerful for a guy that looks kind of nerdy and like doesn't look like your prototypical cage fighter. Like I'd feel good, and I feel there was good value in Lauzon by Lauzon, within the first round. But he's been gone for 2.5 years, and while he beat JSP in his last fight, he had been looking pretty grim against, either mid-level talents like Stephen Ray or similarly shop-worn people like Clay Guida. So again, like I would feel good about this if it were 2 years ago, but while Donald Cerrone is on a terrible run right now, at least I know how Donald Cerrone is fighting right now. And he's been losing to good fighters at welterweight, because the thing about being Donald Cerrone and having that name value is you don't get any easy fights. Like, sad to say, Alex Morono was his easy fight. Like, Alex Morono was like the guy they gave to Cerrone. He's like, hey, this is a winnable fight, and this is about as low ranked a guy as we can give you based on your name value. And he still got the worst of a firefight. Like, Cerrone's chin is starting to abandon him. I can't have any faith in Lauzon here. Give me Cerrone in this one, and because both of these guys are kind of defensively porous, and because both of their chins are clearly compromised, I'm gonna say Cerrone finds a finish somehow. So give me Cerrone by TKO in the second round. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in this pick, but I hope at least one of these guys retires in the cage, if not both of them. If Cerrone wins and wants to go out on a good note, oh, wouldn't that be a beautiful story? Get, little, danger in there with his like ear protectors on, and like be there when dad retires, or Lauzon gets one more win, goes out on a 2-fight win streak and says, hey, peace, thanks for all the memories, or both of them retire. But just please, at least one of you guys retire. Keith, what do you got?
So is it the most surprising thing that Donald Cerrone takes his kid in the cage and he makes a kid wear air protection? Like, to get Donald Cerrone, like, you're like the guy who like will like jump out of an airplane without a parachute and like have the other guy in the parachute catch you or something. And you're the guy who has his kids out in public and he's making him wear air protection. I wonder if like Donald Cerrone treats his kid like complete opposite of how he treats himself.
I think you're probably right. I think there's something of that.
The kid's the kid like he buckles him up in the car like 4 times, has like puts down like the sun visor so it doesn't get a sunburn. He's like super dad. So I'm gonna be like the Debbie Downer right now, and
yeah, you are.
I try not to do this because I hate when other guys do it. I hate when other guys like shit on all these fights, but like I have no interest in seeing Donald Cerrone and Joe Lauzon like fight now. Yeah, in their primes, absolutely, but like now. So I was thinking this, and I started looking at my old notes of Donald Cerrone and Joe Lauzon, and then I just like reading some of the things I wrote about them, and think about what I could say again and what has changed about them. And I'm like, Do we really want a technical breakdown right now of Donald Cerrone and Joe Lauzon? Like, I mean, Cerrone, let's talk about the negatives. He's never had one punch power. He's always been a stationary target. He's always gets hurt to the body. He's always been a slow starter. He always hates pressure. He always needs space to get off his kicks. And now he looks slower. He's open to leg kicks. His chin is probably shot. I mean, Conor McGregor hurt him with a shoulder strike. I mean, I guess he may be able to win a kickboxing battle if he avoids big shots. And I think he probably still could wrestle. I mean, he has been a underrated grappler for his career. I've always thought he's a better grappler than he is a striker. So he has that. Now, like Joe Lauzon's 37. He might as well be 107. Like, if you, all joking aside, if you made me guess right now, and this guy's, I've watched his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen him cornering guys all the time. Like, you can't go to a jiu-jitsu tournament and not see Joe Lauzon. You can't go to a regional fight and not see Joe Lauzon. Like, he's everywhere. The nicest dude on the planet. Like, he's the perfect ambassador of the sport. Like, but if you told me to guess his age, I would have guessed he was like 43, 42, 43. Like, being 37 is actually surprising to me. You look at his, like, somewhat recent, I mean, they're going back years ago since he last fought, but, like, he completely gassed against Chris Goossmacher. Clay Guida knocked him out cold. He's never been he's a good grappler, but he's kind of an overrated grappler. He's never been a strong wrestler. He kind of has a little power. He does have, like, a little sneaky power, as you mentioned. I do think the Jonathan Pierce fight was a fluke. But he can get in that mid-range and strike a little bit. That's always kind of his game. So, like, there's some things about them that could still be there. But as far as the prediction goes, like, I have no idea who's winning this fight. I really think both guys, like, you want both guys to, one of the guys retire or both guys retire. Like, I think they should have been retired for years. I'd be very surprised if Donald Cerrone retires, win or lose, because Donald Cerrone just, I don't know. He has that, like, sad story feeling to him. Like, he has that guy who's, like, I see Jeff Monson taking boxing fights in his 50s. Like, that just has Donald Cerrone feel. I hope not. I really hope, like, having the kid, and I hope that changed him. Joe Lauzon, like, was there ever a better opportunity to retire than when he won his last fight in Boston? The crowd was going. It was one of the craziest pops. I was there. I was covering it for Sure Dog. You know, he was in the. They gave extra attention for all the pre-fight stuff. Like, he was on the main card because it's Joe Lauzon. They gave him the easiest possible fight, which I still picked him to lose that one. But, like, what an opportunity to lose. And I was with you. I thought he was retired. He said everything. So I never do this. I never do this. But you know what? For this fight, like, fuck it. I'm going to back my hometown guy. Only because he's my hometown guy. No other reason. Because you know what? I think Donald Cerrone is shot. I think Joe Lauzon is shot. I mean, Donald Cerrone is, like, I know Alex Moreno's your boy and everything, but, like, Alex Moreno starts Donald Cerrone. I'm going to say Joe Lauzon gets in the pocket. I refuse to do any tape study on this fight. I say Joe Lauzon catches them, wins by first round knockout. Friggin', the Celtics just won the playoff series. This is getting taped after the NFL draft, so I'm sure the Patriots picked some soccer player from Old Dominion to play wide receiver or something, or after they traded back like 6 times to get more draft picks. Let's go, Boston.
You know what? I'm going to do something that I have never, ever done in the history of the show. I'm going to flip my pick because I wanted to pick Lauzon the whole time. And I just, like, I feel sick to my stomach. Give me Lauzon my first round KO as well. And I also need to correct something. And I don't often correct myself. I said that Lauzon came to the UFC through the 5th season of Tough. That, of course, is incorrect. He fought in the UFC before then and knocked the crap out of Jens Pulver, ruined Jens, because he was brought in as like a 20-year-old to basically put like Jens Pulver over for, like, an immediate shot at winning back his title. Instead, Lauzon starched him. That's right. Then the embarrassment, they made Lauzon go on Tough 5, where the coaches were Penn and Pulver. So Lauzon's looking at these two guys, and he's like, you're one of the coaches, and I knocked you out in like 90 seconds, like 6 months ago. Like, what are you going to teach me? Like, yeah. Anyway, Lauzon, veteran of Tough 5, but did not come to the UFC through Tough 5. And that is 2 picks for Joe Lauzon in his, retirement fight to get it done against Donald Cerrone via first round knockout.
And just so you know, I was covering his last fight for the Sherdog, and I was there, and during the open workouts there was like a whole group of guys that I was talking to from Joe Lauzon's team. I didn't know them. Like, I know a lot of people from Joe Lauzon. They were just like students do jiu-jitsu or something with them, and they asked me like, who you picking? And I'm like, honestly, I'll be honest, I took Pierce. And
oh boy,
they're like, oh, no way, no, Joe's gonna win. I'm like, yeah, I think he's shot. Like, because I'll say my opinion to anybody. Like, I think he's shot, and like, we'll make a deal with you. I don't remember what my bet was, but they're like, if Joe wins, you have to like apologize to him. I said, deal. And he won. I didn't get to apologize then, but a week later, he was cornering someone at Bellator, which I covered. I grabbed Joe Lauzon and I apologized right in front of everybody to him. That I picked
that's awesome.
So now, Joe Lauzon, if you make me pick a New Englander and you lose, you got to go apologize to me. No, just kidding. I would never take that. Just joking.
Man, this is how old school Joe Lauzon is. He fought Mike Brown back when Brown still lived in Maine. Yeah,
there you go. And
2004.
The question is like, how many times has his younger brother been arrested since his last fight?
Man, if we did like a list of the like greatest like sibling disparities, like the Joe Lauzon, Dan Lauzon thing.
So I know I'm not gonna mention these people's name, but I know 2 brothers. One brother ended up becoming like a junkie and went on a spree of bank robberies, like all through like Vermont and New Hampshire, and got arrested. Obviously, he eventually got caught and was like facing like 30 years in prison. His other brother, and I might be mixing up the order, but he went to Princeton and Columbia, or one the other way. Like, he got his bachelor's from one, got his master's from the other, or I don't remember which the order was, but he went to 2 Ivy League schools, and now he's a professor at Harvard.
Like, so you're saying that Josh Crispy's brother is teaching at Harvard?
There you go.
Not true. Not true. He's not talking about Josh Crispy. At least I don't think so.
No, I actually do know these people.
Okay. The UFC 274 main card soldiers on with a light heavyweight matchup between Mauricio Shogun Rua and Ovince St. Preux. Shogun, the 40-year-old Brazilian, is 27-12-1 over the course of his legendary career. He is 11-10-1 in the UFC. Incidentally, for you old school heads that think of Shogun as the Pride, standard bearer, he fought 13 times in Pride. He has now fought 22 times in the UFC. This will be the 23rd. He may end up with twice as many UFC appearances as Pride appearances by the time it's all said and done.
So he's fought 22 times in the UFC, and like 14 of them was against Lil Nog. Paul Craig.
Hey, Paul. As Keith alludes to, they've kept him busy with rematches. I don't know why, but most recently he fought in November of 2020, so about 18 months ago, losing via second round TKO via submission to punches in his rematch with Paul Craig at UFC 255. Prior to that, he had won a rematch over Antonio Rogerio Nogueira via split decision. That was July of 2020. It was an obvious time for Little Nog to retire, which he did. It would have been an obvious time for Shogun to retire. He did not, and he's back with another rematch, as this will be the second time he has faced OSP. St. Preux, the 39-year-old Tennessee native, is 25-16 overall. He is 13-11 in the UFC. Worth noting that he's 13-11 overall. He's 13-9 at light heavyweight. He has tried twice, or he's tried on 2 occasions to fight at heavyweight. Both times he has come out on the wrong end of the bargain. He is heavily favored to get things done here in his return to light heavyweight. He is -240 at BetUS.com. Rua +190 on the comeback. Keith, Shogun versus OSP 2. Speaking only for myself, I'm not super excited about this. I'd be much more excited to see each of these guys fight somebody else, because individually they're still exciting fighters, even if they're both like well out of their prime. crashing them back into each other like a pair of cars in a demolition derby seems like a waste of whatever remaining time they have in the cage. But nonetheless, it's what we've got. Who do you think wins?
So I think the UFC should take Rose Namajunas and Carlson Esparza, which is such a fantastic fight, and like sandwich that between like the Lauzon, the Cerrone, and this one. Like just like break it up a little bit. Like like obviously those two fighters deserve the co-main event, but for us, it's gonna be these fights. It's gonna be about an hour of this fight back to back, where I have to try to pretend that I'm excited. You said they're both still exciting and that you'd want to see them fight other people. I don't want to see Shogun fight anymore. And that hurts me to say because Shogun was, I mean, when you think of the history, I mean, seriously, if you think about the history of the sport and you put a category of most exciting, you have the club of, most exciting fighters. Shogun, who is in that club, like he's the president of the club. He is, I mean, you think we're old enough to remember when he's the young guy on the scene, when he's the 19, 20-year-old going through Pride and destroying people, destroying Quentin Jackson in the corner with the knees and hammer fisting Ricardo Arona and just whatever. He was the guy. He was the guy taking the shootbox mantle from Vanderlei Silva when he wins the Grand Prix. I mean, the excitement around this guy was second to none, but he's the old guy now and just doesn't seem right. And when I think about most exciting fighters ever, you could throw like obviously Justin Gaethje, who's on this card, is in that group. Shogun was the same way, like not the same action, rock'em sock'em robot like Gaethje, but just violence and athleticism and meanness and everything. Yeah,
let me throw out and you can agree or disagree, because the other thing Shogun has that someone like Gaethje doesn't is Shogun was the best in the world at his weight class several times. When he won the Pride Grand Prix, when he won the UFC light heavyweight title. So he blended being an unbelievably exciting fighter with being an actual top fighter better than maybe anybody else in the history of the sport, like alongside people like Robbie Lawler.
Yeah. Oh, Robbie
Lawler. Robbie Lawler, he was the best in the world and arguably the most exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like,
but in fairness,
Shogun,
you said that Justin Gaethje doesn't have that. He might get that. He might get it after this weekend.
He's gonna. Well, that would put him right on that top pedestal with like 3 or 4 other guys in the history of the sport.
I'm sure there's other guys that we're not thinking of, but those. I guess. Would you consider Israel Adesanya in that excitement? Would you put him in that?
No, I think like Israel Adesanya. Like
I get excited. I guess I get excited watching him, but
Shogun was exciting against anybody. Like Adesanya can still lay an egg.
Yeah, that's true.
Against the wrong opponent.
They're the guy that it's full throttle the whole time. Just crank it up right away, and kind of like how I run my lawnmower. Like I've never put in like. You ever see me? I put the speed on like medium. Like has anybody ever done that? I've always put it all the way. Just go. That's Shogun. So all that said, so I want to say that how I feel about Shogun. Like he'll always be one of the most exciting, most special guys to me. But I mean, I go over his most recent run. I mean, I thought he lost to Vergara. He tapped the strikes to Paul Craig, who isn't known for his striking. He should retire. I mean, like the one thing we said about Shogun, like this decline has seemed like it's been like 10 years now. We've been talking about the demise of Shogun, and then he'll win a fight. Like, the worst thing that happens to Shogun is that he wins a fight, which buys him more time. I was like, oh, great. But the one thing we always say about like his insane toughness, and like, can we even question that at this point? Like he tapped the strikes. No, obviously Shogun's one of the toughest guys ever. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Does he still have power? Maybe. Like we haven't seen him, but is the output isn't there anymore? I mean, that has declined drastically over the years and just getting worse and worse. He's become really slow. He's taken God knows the amount of damage. Besides like the damage in the cage and in the ring that he's taken over the years, his body, I mean, he's restructured knees and backs and necks and everything. All those, plus all the injuries you don't hear about.
And early in his career, sparring at shoot a box. You know, like
Oh yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I just imagine him and his brother just trying to murder each other
Hmm.
for 5 years straight.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a reason that Ninja can barely talk.
Yeah,
Like being the
Vegas.
smallest guy at shoot a box, like, is not a recipe for long term like brain health.
Yeah, and the one thing I always say about this, Shogun's been fun, and he's had some really fun things that happen on the ground. I've always thought he's been a dramatically overrated grappler. You know, he pulled a knee bar on Kevin Randleman once, like big deal. St. Preux, on the other hand, this is another guy who is really slowed down. He's he's always been, and I want to say something very controversial. I've always viewed him as a minor athlete, like a minus athlete, which is so ironic considering the big calling card for him is played Division One college, University of Tennessee. What kind of athlete has to be Division One? But that athleticism has not transferred. He's always been kind of slow. He's a southpaw. He's a counter striker. He's always looked for that like feedback left hand, which famously knocked out Shogun. But he's flat-footed. He throws a lot of kicks, and he does show that he still had power. Like he knocked out Alonso Manifield, but he's slowed and he's fading, and he's still a good grappler. Like it's funny because to me, he's a guy that was always known for like his power and knockout power, but he's been a fantastic grappler. Like he's been like everything. We credit Shogun for his grappling, and other than the St. Preux choke, the Von Flue choke, you know, St. Preux is not known for his like takedowns and strangular, and he's really good at that. So as far as prediction goes, like I didn't get into all this stuff because this is another fight. I see two faded fighters. I'm taking OSP to take Shogun down, to beat him up on the ground, to choke him out. I'm even going to say, like, I'm going to go bold. And I just don't know if this is bold, but, like, I'm going to say he even hits the Von Flue choke on him. Like, I think he's going to set it up and take down Shogun. I think he's going to do it in the very first round. Now, and the reason why I took that is, yeah, OSP is faded, in my opinion. His day, like, he's on the back nine. But he still looks like at least a UFC level fighter. If you take the top regional fight, like the fight organizations, your CESs, your LFAs, whatever, your Fury, like whatever the better ones are,
Mm-hmm.
does Shogun win the light heavyweight title in any of those organizations? Like, would you favor him over insert light heavyweight champion in these organizations?
Possibly not. Like, I don't know off the top of my head who the top.
Sure. Well, let me ask you this.
But no, just for example, like Fury, Ike Villanueva was the Fury light heavyweight champ when he moved to the UFC. Like, while I would favor Shogun against him, it wouldn't be. I wouldn't feel super confident. And if I favor Shogun, it's just because like Ike still doesn't check leg kicks, and like who is smart enough to just take the win that like Ike gives him.
I mean, you look over the light heavyweight roster in the UFC right now, like you can't pick five guys you'd pick him over.
No, like on his last legs for sure.
It might be Ike Villanueva.
Yeah.
KB Bueller. Where's KB Bueller at? Yeah, I spent too much time. I'm sorry. I'm taking. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. I really don't. I feel like I've really pulled down the mood of this show, but yeah, St. Preux by first round submission.
Yeah, I'm feeling all of it, the same things that you are here. Like OSP at the heart of it is still a UFC level light heavyweight. And I'm glad that you made the point that despite the fact, I mean, he looks like a linebacker. He was a linebacker. Like super fast twitch athleticism has never really been what made his game run. It's strength and power. Like, you know, his head kick is monstrous, but it's not this like crow cop, like it's up like that head kick. It's just like somebody swinging a fucking telephone pole at you. And then his super underrated ground game, which even beyond the, you know, the Von Flue choke thing, no, he's just aggressive and positionally sound. Like his win against Tyson Pedro, who's a good grappler himself, was, you know, super impressive. Yeah, like OSP, even if these guys are both on their last legs athletically, he's going to be bigger and stronger than Shogun, and I think smart enough to pursue his best avenue to victory, which I do think is going to be on the ground. Give me St. Preux by second round. submission. And yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be kind of a bummer to watch, regardless of which guy you're rooting for, because you're not seeing the best OSP either, really. Third from the top at UFC 274 is a lightweight matchup between Michael Chandler and Tony Ferguson. Chandler, the 36-year-old Missouri native, is 22-7 overall. He is 1-2 since joining the UFC as a former multiple reign Bellator lightweight champ. He won his debut by first round knockout over Dan Hooker last January. He challenged Charles Oliveira. Well, met Charles Oliveira for the vacant lightweight title at UFC 262 in May, losing by TKO early in the second round after having the champ in all kinds of trouble in the first. But nonetheless, the back and forth war went the way of the Bronx. Came back at UFC 268 against Justin Gaethje, who headlines this card, and lost a unanimous decision in a kind of runaway fight of the year winner for 2021. He'll be taking on Ferguson. The 38-year-old Southern California native is 25-6 overall. He is 15-4 in the UFC and is in the first losing streak of any kind of his entire career, but he has lost 3 straight, those going all the way back to May of 2020. He got knocked out in the 5th round by Gaethje at UFC 249 after a fun 5-round fight that had been going increasingly Gaethje's way. Came back and lost a unanimous decision to Oliveira in December of 2020 at UFC 256. And most recently, last May at UFC 262, lost a unanimous decision to Beneil Dariush. The odds on this one are the widest of any on the card by far, almost by double. Chandler minus 420 as the massive favorite, Ferguson plus 320 as the underdog. Keith, this is a fight that, I mean, we've talked about other fights on this card in the same way. This is a fight that would have been a great fight 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago. I mean, these guys have both been in the conversation of the best fighters in the division for quite some time. Obviously, both of them on losing streaks right now, so some of the shine is off it, but it still feels pretty important, and whoever wins is still kind of sneaky close to the title picture at lightweight. How do you feel about the matchup in general, and who do you think wins and how?
All right, so the thing that stands out to me is when you read these odds, and Michael Chandler is this like massive favorite, and I just think like go back 2 years ago. Go back when Michael Chandler first joined the UFC, which was a year and a half, 2 years ago, give or take. Mm-hmm. Tony Ferguson would have been a favorite.
Yeah,
it's just funny how a fighter can just fall off and have the masses turn against him. And I get it. I mean, Tony Ferguson looks like a shell like his old self. Now, on the feet, I think he can still be good. I mean, it was just 2 fights ago where the beginning of the Justin Gaethje fight was competitive. And then Gaethje kind of, ran away with it in the, I think rounds 2 through 5 or so, or 3 through 5 or so is when he really started taking him. But early, he was doing well. I mean, I think Tony Ferguson drop Chandler too early in the fight? I think at the very end. Although I think it was the first round he dropped him with a shot.
Oh, you mean Gaethje?
Yeah, what'd I say?
Ferguson. He definitely hurt him.
Yeah, Ferguson dropped Gaethje, I think, early. But then, the rest of the fight, Gaethje kind of turned around. No, so Ferguson, he could still have high output. He could still be very unpredictable with his spinning attacks and bunches of weird angles, very creative. Elusive, kind of flowing style, really great jab, perfect timing on his right hand, underrated power like we just talked about. He hurt Justin Gaethje, and then just win with output, output we've never seen, output that he put on, I think RDA, the output he put in that fight. But he's always had defensive flaws. Even the height of Tony Ferguson's, I was saying this, and I'm not the only one who was saying this. He keeps his hands low, he keeps his chin high. He was the guy who would throw a teep kick with his hands by his side, straight down. You just time the right hand, but he would eat it. He'd never checked leg kicks. I mean, you go back to Justin Gaethje tore up his legs, Charles Oliveira tore up his legs. But the thing that is the most troublesome about Tony Ferguson right now is his offensive wrestling has been gone for a really long time. Just he hasn't used it. It was been a knock at him for since his early run in the UFC. But his defensive wrestling is gone. I don't know if it was ever there because he had such a like funk style creative scramble, but against Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush in his last two fights, they made him look like he had no ground game at all. They took him down and he couldn't get up. Like even go back to like when he was winning the interim title against Kevin Lee. Like Kevin Lee was having his way on the ground early in that fight. Kevin Lee like mounted him and stuff. I don't know if he's still a submission threat. Like perhaps you shoot a bad shot on Tony Ferguson, maybe he can lock in, like a Darce or Anaconda or these things that he's caught other guys with. I'm hoping it's still there, and I'm assuming his cardio is still legendary. But besides the physical demise of Tony Ferguson, we can't ignore the mental demise that we saw for a really long time. And we kind of joked about some of the things he was saying and the weird quirkiness. And it was something we would joke about when he's winning. But when he starts losing, you really have to start questioning, like, maybe we should have saw this coming. Maybe we should have been more concerned. Maybe it shouldn't have been like, hey, he's just kind of funny. Like, no, maybe this is a dude that needs help. Now, if he puts on a performance against Michael Chandler, you know what's going to happen? We're going to ignore all that again. Chandler you have to worry about him because he took a lot of damage in his last fight. He took a lot of damage in his last two fights. Remember, he got knocked out by Charles Oliveira, and then he had an all-time war against Justin Gaethje that we'll talk about when I'm an old man with my grandkids. We'll talk about that fight if we'll talk about a fight that was so hyped it actually lived up to the hype. But he's your classic wrestle boxer who's explosive, a very boxing style where he high guard defense, starts in and out of range, throwing hard, tight hooks. Got KO power in both of his hands, and that's because he's one of the best at keeping his base. He keeps his legs underneath him. Very like Canelo Alvarez is a very something. Now, guys, I'm not saying Michael Chandler is Canelo Alvarez with his hands, but I mean by like Canelo Alvarez always has his legs underneath him when he's throwing shots, so he's draining his power. Michael Chandler, very similar way. A big thing that part of Chandler's game is his ability to go downstairs to the body. It's such a besides like the ability to, he understands that that's his avenue, being a shorter guy for the weight class. But we talked about Tony Ferguson having defensive holes. So is Michael Chandler. He's always had it. He's always dropped his hands when he's reloading to his face. He got knocked out on a counter strike from Pitbull in their matchup. He never checked leg kicks. Go back to like Brett Primus kicking it, giving him the dead leg way back in the day. But he's a great wrestler. Like we've seen him wrestle really good guys. I go back to like Benson Henderson when he's like suplexing Ben Henderson. He's got great entries. He's super strong, picks guys up, slams them, has strong ground control. I mean, he's out-grappled Brett Primus, who's known for his jiu-jitsu. He's out-grappled Yamaguchi, who's like the Bellator grappling guy. I think he's got the most submissions in company's history. And he's also has the output. He's shown that he has the output to have this like balls to the wall style, loading up on shots, wrestling, but still be able to take it throughout the whole fight, which is really, really impressive for that style. I am a little worried about his chin. And all-time war against Justin Gaethje and then Charles Oliveira is concerning. But to me, as far as a prediction go, this fight simply comes down to what kind of fight does Michael Chandler want? Does Michael Chandler want another all-time war? Well, maybe he keeps it on the feet and he swings it out with Ferguson, and then maybe it's a 50-50 fight. But if he's seen any of Ferguson's last fights or any fights where Ferguson has been the less credentialed wrestler, he would see that with the guy who's lost his last two fights, kind of has his back against the wall, I'm shooting for a takedown. I'm taking Tony Ferguson down, and I'm battering him on the feet, keeping him with his shoulders square on the canvas where he can't get back up. And that's actually what I expect from Chandler. I know we all want them to bang it out on the feet, but I see Ferguson getting taken down over and over again. I expect him to get beat up on the ground. I think we might even see like a 10-8 round in there. I think we're going to see another really lopsided loss for Tony Ferguson, we might start questioning if he should still be doing this. Give me Chandler, like I said, in an absolute blowout.
Great, thank you. I could not agree more with basically everything you said there. And there are certain things that, I mean, I would even like push, even further out there. I think Michael Chandler is arguably and certainly in the short list of the greatest athletes ever to pass through mixed martial arts. Like in just terms of the things that you would be looking for, like the checklist in like almost any sport, just like this, the speed, just the coordination, balance, power. He's one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen in mixed martial arts. He's the answer to the what if, like, what if someone like Kevin Randleman had like gotten like proper training from like day one, like, had really crossed over to MMA in like his early 20s and gotten proper training. It would look like Michael Chandler. And Michael Chandler is one of the greatest of all time in his weight class. And it's impressive how much most of it is held up as he moves into his late 30s. He is still fast. He is still incredibly strong. He's still a great wrestler with a wrestling style that, frankly, depends on athleticism. Like, he wrestles like a top college wrestler. He shoots doubles and singles from outside and finishes them with authority. I'm worried about his chin as well, because not just his last couple fights, he's been getting in wars forever. He's been hittable forever. There's a reason his 2 fights with Eddie Alvarez were all-time classics. And, I mean, those fights were 7 and 8 years ago, like 7 and 9 years ago, and he took a ton of damage in those fights. I mean, his back-to-back losses with Will Brooks will go down as one of like the weirdest historical footnotes of all time.
The first fight was great, though. If you remember, the first one between them was good. And sorry to interrupt you there, but the Eddie Alvarez, like someone who has never seen the Michael Chandler versus Eddie Alvarez fights, they're just as good as the Chandler Gaethje fights.
Oh, especially my goodness. Those fights were 9 and 11 years ago. Sorry. 9 and 11 years ago.
Eddie Alvarez versus Michael Chandler 1 was on the same night as Shogun Dan Henderson 1. And people call Shogun and Dan Henderson the greatest fight ever. And I always say it wasn't even the greatest fight that night.
Completely agree. Like, Alvarez versus Chandler 1, one of the greatest fights of all time.
I remember being at a bar and they were both on and they were going on at the same time.
Just literally both happening at the same time. Wow. But I do worry about, his chin, and it's, I mean, it's what cost him the title against Oliveira. Like, it's ironic because both guys got their chin checked in that fight, and Charles the Bronx, that we'll be talking about in a few minutes here, is the one that fought through it, that recovered, that regained the momentum, and that finished it early in the next round. The good news for Chandler is that he's facing someone in Ferguson that, for all the offensive weapons he has, one-shot power has never really been it. Like, he has good power, but he has, like, split your face open, look like somebody fought you with a machete power. It's not typically starch a guy with one punch power. So even if Ferguson catches him clean, I don't think it's lights out for Chandler. And everything you said about Ferguson, yeah. It was never a style that was going to age well. And Ferguson is not only 38 now, but he's 38 and has been famously injury prone for his entire UFC run. I mean, there's a reason that Ferguson versus Khabib is the fight we never got to see. And, famously, they tried to make the thing 5 times and just somebody or other got hurt, and it was usually Ferguson. Ferguson was a great offensive wrestler, but even though he's about as different a wrestler from Chandler as you could get, his was also a wrestling style that depended on athleticism. Like, it was like snap down from the collar tie. It was ankle picks, just kind of unorthodox, but really cool stuff. I mean, just would have been one of my favorite amateur wrestlers to watch, if he just kind of like stayed that path, but was fun to watch in MMA. And his submission game ran off it because, I mean, he's still tied for the UFC's all-time lead in Bravo choke submissions for a reason, because the collar tie to front headlock, that whole thing that his tall frame and long arms makes work, just the wrestling and the grappling combined seamlessly. But yeah, he was always hittable. Like, every Tony Ferguson fight was great to watch because he'd hit them, they'd hit him, but he'd shrug it off and hit them more and they would die. Like, that's how he strung together 12 straight wins in the division. Like, all those guys had their moments against him. And you mentioned some of them, like, Kevin Lee, like, sitting on his chest and pelting him. Hell, dude, Lando Venata is still in the UFC. He is under 500 in the UFC. And the best thing he has to hang his hat on is winning the first round against Tony Ferguson. Like, Lando Venata, like, a featherweight, stepped up on, like, a week's notice and put Tony Ferguson on skates. Like, that's the charm and the downfall of Tony Ferguson. His opponent's offense has always worked on him, which is why his fights are so great to watch. If he just blew through everybody and it was completely one-sided, he'd beat Khabib. But no, he's Tony, and it was great while it lasted, but it's over. I picked wrongly against him in all three of the fights that he's lost. I picked him to beat Justin Gaethje. I thought they both have their moments in the first round, but he'd start rolling downhill on Gaethje and win a decision going away, if not finish him. I thought Charles Oliveira would break, even though I knew that Charles Oliveira wasn't the flake anymore. He wasn't that 2014 guy. He had won 7 straight fights, or 8 at that point. I thought, yeah, but he hasn't faced Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson, like, breaks people. That's what he does. I was wrong. Oliveira was the one who broke Ferguson. And then Dariush, the main problem is that all of a sudden the problems with Ferguson's defensive wrestling were laid bare. Dariush got the fight to the ground when and where and how he wanted, and Ferguson just had no answer for him. Like, he's a more nervous ref would have called that thing, like, with a technical submission, like thinking that Ferguson's arm had snapped. Like, Ferguson's kind of lucky that it went to decision. All of that spells bad news against Chandler. Like, Ferguson still isn't a guy whose chin is so gone that he can just be starched with one punch. I mean, Gaethje got the TKO, but it was a standing TKO where Ferguson was just sort of wandering around drunkenly because Gaethje had hit him in the head 120 times. But I could see something like that happening here, only sooner. Like, Chandler, I think, will outland Ferguson if they stay on the feet. Or if he chooses to, I think Chandler's going to be able to get him down pretty easily. And I think he's going to be able to take top position and just start landing ground and pound. Give me Chandler by TKO, probably on the ground within 2 rounds. I'll say TKO second round. With that, we come to the co-main event of UFC 274, a strawweight title fight between defending champ Rose Namajunas and the challenger Carla Esparza. Namajunas, the 29-year-old Wisconsin native by way of Colorado, is 11-4 in her mixed martial arts career. She is 9-3 in the UFC, and she is on a 3-fight win streak, those being a split decision over Jessica Andrade in July of 2020, a first-round head kick knockout of then-champ Weili Zhang in April of 2021 that saw Namajunas win back her title, and a split decision win over Zhang in November, where she defended and re-secured her hold on the crown. She'll be taking on Esparza. The 34-year-old Southern California native is the first UFC strawweight champ. She is 18-6 overall. She is 9-4 in the UFC. She is the winner of the 20th season of The Ultimate Fighter, whose purpose was to crown the inaugural strawweight champ. She, of course, beat none other than Namajunas to win that, finishing her in the second round, I believe. Let me make sure I'm right on that. Third round, sorry. Choked her out in the third round. Since then, she lost the title to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, kind of hung around quietly in the top 10 for several years, and in the last 2 years has put on a 5-fight win streak that has vaulted her right back into the title picture. She has beaten on that streak Verna Jandiroba, Alexa Grasso, Michelle Watterson, Marina Rodrigues, and Xiaonan Yan. The last 2 of those, the Rodrigues and Yan wins, were over top 10 fighters who were on their way to title contention themselves. But with their losses to Esparza, they are in the rearview mirror, and she is right back in the title picture. She is the underdog. She's plus 155, where Namajunas is minus 190 to repeat as champ. Keith, the UFC strawweight division is completely and utterly unique. The division has been around now for 7.5 years. The first title fight between Namajunas and Esparza was in December of 2014. So, going on 7.5 years. It has had 5 champs, and those 5 current and former champs are the top 5 women in the division right now. Like, none of them have gone anywhere. Rose Namajunas, Carla Esparza, Weili Zhang, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and Jessica Andrade are probably the top 5 women in the division right now. Jessica Andrade beat Amanda Lemos just a couple weeks ago in her return to strawweight, after having contended for the flyweight title. Namajunas and Zhang are fighting in June. They are running back their all-time classic from 2020. All these women have fought each other. They've all beaten each other up. But Namajunas is, pending the result of this, kind of floated to the top. She is, 5-2 against them? Yeah, she lost once to Andrade. She lost once to Esparza. She is 2-0 against Zhang.
She never lost to Esparza.
Oh, okay. I'm sure. Well, I'm sure we'll get to that.
Well, she never lost to Esparza because that was long-haired Rose Namajunas. That person doesn't count.
But Buzzcut Rose, undefeated.
Buzzcut Rose didn't lose to her. So that's a completely different person.
I mean, Namajunas, it's impossible to forget the highlight of Andrade spiking her on her head. Just basically slamming her way out of the Kimura and winning the title that way. But if you put that out of your mind, she's actually been dominant enough in this division that the Zhang versus Jędrzejczyk fight is almost irrelevant because they're both 0-2 against Namajunas. There's not much that could happen in that fight that will make a third matchup with Namajunas interesting, which is why Andrade is probably going to fight the winner of this because she and Esparza haven't fought at all yet. And she and Namajunas are 1-1 against each other. And she's the one that finished the fight in her win. Like, that's probably more appealing. So that's how good Namajunas has been. And it's interesting to look now because Esparza is the, moderate underdog here. Esparza was a slight favorite the first time they fought. And the swing in the odds over that, 7.5 years, it's really entirely due to Namajunas' development. Esparza is completely the same fighter she was in. Carla Esparza is the same fighter she was. Namajunas, the first time they fought, was 21 years old, and she's physically different than she was then, and has weapons that she didn't at that time. I mean, the first time they fought, Namajunas was a 20-year-old kid, maybe 21, and her main calling card was that she was a dazzling grappler. Yeah, I mean, she hit a flying armbar in her second fight. That was the first time I ever noticed her, was when she flying armbarred Katina Lowe in Invicta, and I said, "Oh, holy cow, that was impressive." And oh man, is that Pat Barry? Those, the two things I remember about that. That was what she had, and that was a terrible. That was a terrible style matchup against someone in Esparza who was and is a bowling ball tank of a wrestler. I mean, she's a good wrestler, and she wrestles in a way that not many women do. Not many women in MMA wrestle like Carla Esparza, because not as many women, even if they turn into good wrestlers, come from an actual amateur wrestling background. They don't shoot takedowns from the outside like a guy that came up in high school and college wrestling. She does. And while she's short and stocky, she's physically very powerful and surprisingly explosive. She's really quick. And that was just terrible news for Namajunas, who was a poor defensive wrestler, wasn't very physically strong at the time. And while she had some interesting weapons on the feet, they had not yet coalesced into any kind of coherent striking game. The Namajunas that's fighting now is much more physically strong. She's not at a substantial strength disadvantage, except against Jessica Andrade, and everyone is at a disadvantage against Jessica Andrade. She's become a deadly striker. You'll get into the X's and O's of her striking game better than I will, but she has surprising power in both hands. She has beautiful high kicks that just are beautifully set up and not telegraphed. She's become, she's still not a great offensive wrestler, but she's a solid offensive wrestler. She's a much better defensive wrestler when she wants to keep things on the feet. She's good at using her footwork to just deny clean shots, period, let alone have to sprawl on them, or get underhooks and shuck her way out. She's just a much more complete fighter than she was. And that, along, with the fact that she's won the title twice since then, I think reflects why these odds have swung the way they have. But Esparza still represents the same danger that she did the first time they fought. She's still a very good offensive wrestler. And while Namajunas has improved as a wrestler, it's also been a while since she's fought somebody that really, really wanted to get her down and was testing her with offensive wrestling. Like, she's been winning primarily stand-up battles over the last few years. Like, you know, the last time somebody was really, really trying to take her down, it was Andrade. She kept defending with Kimuras, and about the third time she tried, you know, she got plunked on her head. I am interested to see what happens the first time, you know, Esparza shoots a takedown. I'm interested especially to see what happens the fifth time Esparza shoots a takedown and it's late in the second round. Is it getting easier or is it getting harder? Is Namajunas evading and defending the takedowns, or is she actually making Esparza pay for trying? You know, are they getting into like wide leg positions against the fence where Namajunas is just elbowing her in the head, or, you know, like spinning around and threatening to take her back? Those are the things I'm interested to see. You know, if Esparza comes right out and like shoots and takes Namajunas down, and, you know, 90 seconds later, Namajunas is like trying to throw up triangles from her back while Esparza is like hammer fisting her in the face, I'll realize, okay, not that much has actually changed in the last 7.5 years. This is more of a rock, paper, scissors situation where some of these women have each other's number than just a case of one fighter developing past the other. Having said that, I would be a little surprised if that were the case. I think Rose Namajunas really has improved enormously since she was the raw, promising talent that she was, you know, in 2014. I expect that Esparza will have a hard time getting Namajunas down, especially in the early going. And I think Namajunas is going to she's going to bust her up on the feet. I expect that Rose, her jab is going to be in Esparza's face constantly. I expect that she's going to invest in kicks. She has, obviously her head kicks have yielded some highlights, but she kicks well to the legs and body. I think she's going to have the footwork to, you know, move laterally, stay out of Esparza's way, and, you know, again, just deny her like the bowling ball double leg that, you know, she used to good effect in their first fight. Give me Namajunas. It's tempting to go decision, but I think on top of everything else, Namajunas has a fantastic gas tank and has become incredibly mentally strong, which is ironic and inspiring for somebody who's always been very open about her, you know, mental health and focus struggles outside the cage. Inside the cage, she has become a stone cold killer. So I expect she's going to start rolling downhill. These are going to get to be more and more lopsided rounds. And give me Namajunas by a 5th round TKO. You know, Esparza might win one of the first 2 rounds, but it's going to get more and more lopsided as it goes along. Namajunas finishes it in the 5th.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So you mentioned about Namajunas kind of almost clearing out the division at this point. Would it be good for the UFC if Carlos Esparza wins?
Absolutely. You get Esparza versus Andrade next. They've never fought each other.
Yeah.
And Esparza rematch with Zhang and Esparza haven't fought each other.
Nope. You put Joanna back in it because she's got a win over. Like, it definitely opens up the division, but she is not as marketable as Rose Namajunas.
Nope.
But on the flip side, Rose is not like this huge marketable one. I mean, you've seen her in a little here and there, but she's definitely more marketable than Carlos Esparza. But it would, I don't know if it's good for the casual fans, but I think for the hardcore fans, it would be a good thing. Like, I think the hardcore fans would almost accept it. Like, they'd be happy with it. And honestly, it would be a nice story. Talk about a fighter that really was, like, when she was losing to like Ronda Marcos and stuff, like, no one would guess that she'd be back in this position. And they give her a long road back. Like, it was not like you get that you're a former champion, you get a little quicker path. Like, no, she had to go through the trenches.
I mean, since you mentioned this, you know, she's got 4 losses in the UFC.
Yeah.
You know, the Joanna one, completely legit. Joanna Jędrzejczyk busted her up. But, you know, and Tatiana Suarez was just bigger, better wrestler.
Yeah.
Like Tatiana Suarez. But
terrible.
The other two are split decisions against Randa Marcos and Claudia Gadelha. And you know what? Most people, myself included, scored the Marcos fight for Esparza. I scored the Marcos fight against Gadelha. I did think Gadelha deserved to win that one. But you know what? At the time, Gadelha was a top 5 fighter, and she's a kind of bigger, stronger person who wants to do the same things Esparza does.
Yeah.
You know, like it's interesting how much, to quote Nate Diaz, like how much the UFC kind of slow rolled Esparza based on not a whole lot. Like they just kind of forgot about her after the Marcos loss.
I think it just comes down to her style, her personality. Like she's not a talker. She's kind of like, even when you see when she's about to fight, she's got like this very like just calm, not Ronda Rousey like resting bitch face or not bubbly, not like just very just calm, like ho hum kind of personality.
Like in line at the DMV, you know, to like get her
Yeah.
registration or like license
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. And then her style is not very exciting. It's take it down, hold it down. Like I like high level wrestling. Like some of her entries are really great, but like I get it. This is a fun fight. It's a nice story either way.
Dude,
like
let me ask you one other thing, and we'll probably focus on this more in the recap afterwards. But you kind of talked about marketability, personality. There's another problem with Namajunas. If Namajunas, like win or lose, announced her retirement this Saturday after the fight, one, I would be less surprised, and two, I would believe it more than just about any high-level fighter in my memory aside from Khabib.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
Anytime in the last 2 years, it would not surprise me if she had moved on to other things. She's still only 29 years old, but
yeah,
she's gotten to a place mentally where you can tell she doesn't need MMA anymore.
No, she's talked about the stress of it in the past. You know, she has a very like I don't know the word I'm looking for. She very unique personality. Like she's a different character. Like she just I think she even said that like she's not a normal person. No fighter's a normal person, but you know what I'm saying? Like she's a little eccentric. Like she's a little weird.
Yeah. And I mean, not in a bad way. Like it's interesting to have people who are different, but part of her difference is that her entire self-worth is not tied up in this fighting thing.
That's right.
Like she'll never do the Donald Cerrone thing and hang on for like an 8-fight losing streak.
I don't think so too. Yeah. And she I know she's like an introvert and everything. Her marketability is on her own. And I think she's one of these ones who she doesn't want to be marketable.
No, like, she said that like the publicity part of it stresses her out. Yeah,
like Demetrius Johnson, I think wanted to be marketable. He just didn't want to change his personality. Like he was like, this is my personality. Now UFC, you make it marketable. Yep. Where Rose is like the opposite. Like she's happy not being marketable.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Brock Lesnar is like a kind of a weird character.
Yeah. But with Brock, you could market him because he was built the way he was, and being a mean guy who just said really short sentences works when you're marketing a man.
Yeah, and he also had the wrestling WWE background. Like he knows he can turn it. He knew how to turn it up a little bit more. And
do you believe that she shaved her head because she's tired of being as hot as she was? Like
I don't know. I know she did it. Wasn't it like around the Paige Van Zandt fight was when she did it?
Yeah, like when Paige was supposed to do it as well for like some sort of charity thing. But that was a lot of years ago, and she's still doing it. And I swear that like it's to like draw less attention to herself.
Yeah, I was about to ask her like in a press conference, like, "Hey, do you ever think about growing your hair back?" Like I mean, she's still an attractive young lady, but
of course, like
she was
haircut's not going to change that, but
yeah, but she was like wicked hot with the long. I mean, also she was like younger. She was like 21, 22, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. So I'll say this about Rose Namajunas. Like the GIF or the little highlight of Pat Barry, like I think it was when she won the title the second time where he's standing there. Who's the best GIF? Like that is one of my favorite like moments, like a private moment you get from between a boyfriend and girlfriend. And listen, I know there's been some accusations with their, I don't know that, but that moment where he's like talking into existence that you're the best, and then she's saying it back to him, like that's some real shit, like that self-confidence stuff. And I love that. Like she'll wake up every morning and then just have Pat Barry screaming at you, "Who's the best?" And I'm like, "I'm the best, Pat Barry." I just she's also, besides being the best, she's become one of the most fun fighters to watch from a technical sense. She's so elusive. She's got like the best footwork in the women's MMA right now. Great lateral movement. She can strike while backing up is such a rare thing. Quick hands, no tells, as you mentioned. Fast, underrated. Like not just underrated power, like the most underrated power. Like she possibly is the hardest hitter in the division. Like who hits harder than her? Weili maybe.
Well, and the thing
Marina
is,
Rodriguez.
and if it's someone like Weili is like this muscular thing that swings super hard and everything.
Yeah,
Namajunas, it just flows out.
Yeah, I think she's one of the ones because of her speed and her technique, that's where she generates this power. It's kind of like Adesanya, where you look at him, you don't expect him to hit so hard, and then he does. I think it's the same way with Rose. And like again, like other than maybe Marina Rodriguez and I guess maybe Weili, like I don't know who hits harder than her. I think she might be number one. And that's the whole point. Like you wouldn't think of her. You don't think of her as this power puncher, but she batters people. Great head movement, like great at like getting in her range, feeling comfortable. Like she used to be like a little bit of a slow starter, and she's not. Like she gets to her range immediately now. Like she knows where it is. One of the best, and I've said this before, I've had it in my notes for 2 or 3 fights now. One of the best jabs in MMA, regardless of gender, regardless of weight class. Good kicks, quick high kick, one of the best switch kicks in MMA history. So intelligent, like her reads, but also like I always go back to her fight against Joanna Jędrzejczyk in the rematch in the 5th round, where most people had a 2-2. It's deep in the 5th round, where it's been all 4 rounds really close, but most people had it like it's coming down to this 5th round. It's like a minute left in the round, and she just timed it. She didn't shoot for a takedown the entire fight and gets a takedown against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who's historically had really good takedown defense and got a takedown to win. I just like that. Like if you pressure her, she can sneak a takedown. She's a legitimate submission threat, really like a real threat, like a little bit of a wizard. She's very flexible. She moves well on her back. If she's on top, she advances position. Just overall, just such a well-rounded fighter. Now, Carlos Esparza, I mean, if we're being honest with her striking, you said that she's pretty much the same fighter she was then. Yeah, like her striking has not gotten much better. Like she throws an overhand right and she will land, and that's more because she gets all the way out and she darts in, and a lot of people expecting her to shoot then, and then she like lands a punch instead.
It's the wrestler punch.
Yeah, the wrestler. Yeah, it's like when Khabib landed a punch on Conor McGregor. Like, yeah.
It's when Randleman knocked out Crow Cop.
Yeah,
you know, he's expecting the level change. You throw the overhand right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She even does she even throws the one punch at a time, but she just does it. She does it. Everything she's doing just set up those entries, and the entries are really good. Like the more you watch her, she gets in and she cuts an angle so quickly. Or she just gets around the leg, knows to get her leg on the backside, limp arm out. She just like everything's technically sound, which is funny because her entries aren't explosive. Like it's not Tatiana Suarez. Yeah. It's like where Tatiana Suarez just could blast like Josh Koscheck style, blast through your hips. It's not. It's get in, get a little bit of an angle, work the angle, turn the corner, keep turning the corner, keep turning. And like when she's shooting, she's not trying to. It's very similar to Khabib, where Khabib doesn't have the greatest like explosion through Jordan Burroughs style double. It's more of I have to make up this much while I'm going to shoot and reshoot and reshoot and reshoot, and every time I'm getting a couple inches, and then I got the foot. Where like the explosive Jordan Burroughs, you know, insert whatever is like one move. That's not Esparza. She's just creeping a little bit. I also like her, like her mentality in her. Like besides that, like her mentality is like she knows if she doesn't get the first one, I'm gonna get eventually one of them. So she doesn't break when she misses one shot. She also has very good reactionary double. If you pressure her, she'll just drop underneath one of your shots, and you like set her up. So you have to be very cautious. Smothering top control. She gets you down, you're gonna have a fight to get back up to your feet. Very patient on top. Will just ride out around, win, handle control. Like other than Marina Rodriguez, for some reason, like she kept Marina in the fight because at the very end of the round she was dropping down on ankle locks for some weird reason. But other than that fight, take that fight out. She's very patient. She also will just like sit in like the guard like Tito Ortiz, the old style, and just kind of land ground and pound. But if you give her a chance, she'll pass guard, and she's got her ground and pound has really improved. Man, you go back to like the Yan Xiaonan fight, like she battered. That was her last fight. She battered Yan with ground and pound. She's showed the ability to go deep into fights wrestling. Like she doesn't slow down. Like she's going just as hard in the 3rd round with her wrestling than she is in the 1st round. Like it's not something that fades. Though I do want to point out this, it's been like 2013 was the last time she had to go 25 minutes, and that was against Beck Rawlings and Invicta. So that is a little bit concerning, but I just like a hunch. Like, I don't think Carla Esparza gasses out. Like, she might not have the ability, like that might become apparent. She might have the ability to get her down, but I don't think it's because she gassed. Now, as far as predictions go, I'm with you. I'm going with Namajunas. To me, she has 3 avenues of victory. She can just outpoint her, play it safe, stop some takedowns, land a jab, land teep kicks, land leg kicks, just be busy. The second one is she could just starch her. She could catch her coming in, just catch her with a switch kick, catch her with a strike. Or the third one is, and to me, this is the least likely, but it could still happen. Like, she could, like, if she caught a guillotine or a triangle or something when she's on her back, that wouldn't surprise me. Now, Carlos Esparza, to me, she has 1 avenue of victory. But, like, I said that, like, Namajunas has 3 avenue victories and Esparza has 1. I'm not like, it's not like a pie where, okay, so she has 75% of the pie. Like, that 1 avenue, like, it would not shock me because Carlos Esparza does not have to get 5 takedowns. She only really has to get 3 takedowns. She only has to win 3 rounds. Can she get 3 takedowns in 25 minutes? Of course. Now, obviously, there's way more to it. When in the round did she get the takedown? How long did she hold it? I get there's more to it. But I give her a better avenue of victory than some do. Just Namajunas seems special right now. I think she's going to stop some takedowns. I think she's going to land something big. I'm going to say she does it in the 3rd round. Maybe hurts her to the body with like a teep kick and then finish her off with a punch. Give me Namajunas by 3rd round TKO.
That brings us to the main event, a scheduled 5-round lightweight title fight between defending champ Charles de Bronx Oliveira and challenger Justin the Highlight Gaethje. Oliveira, the 32-year-old Brazilian, is 32-8 with 1 no contest overall. He is 20-8 with 1 no contest in the UFC. He is on a frankly ridiculous 10-fight winning streak dating all the way back to June 2018 when he choked out Clay Guida back at UFC 225. Most recently, he won the vacant title over Michael Chandler at UFC 262 via 2nd round TKO. He defended it against Dustin Poirier via 3rd round rear naked choke at UFC 269. He meets Gaethje, the 33-year-old Arizona-born fighter out of Colorado, is 23-3 overall. He is 6-3 since joining the UFC as the outgoing World Series of Fighting lightweight champ. He won his last time out. It was a unanimous decision over Michael Chandler at UFC 268 in an instant classic and last year's fight of the year, according to most outlets. That allowed him to bounce back from his loss to Khabib Nurmagomedov at UFC 254 back in October of 2020 in what turned out to be Nurmagomedov's retirement fight. Gaethje here has yet another chance to win lightweight gold that has so far eluded him in the UFC. He is a slight underdog to do so. He's plus 135. You can get the champ, Oliveira, at minus 165 at betus.com. Keith, it's a hell of a fight ahead of us. How do you see this one going? Who do you have winning? And while obviously we'll get to it on the recap once we see what happens, you know, if you have any initial thoughts about kind of what would be next for the winner, I'd be happy to hear them. But let's first hear how you think the fight will go.
Well, let's do that first. What's next for the winner? I think it's the same answer for both guys. I mean, it's got to be Islam Makhachev. To me, I mean, you could have made a strong argument for Makhachev over Gaethje already, but not fighting. Yeah. I mean, like to be fighting in this card main event. Mm-hmm. If imagine the stylistic matchup between arguably the greatest submission artist in UFC. I mean, he does have the most submissions in Charles Oliveira versus that Dagestanian wrestler, like stylistic matchup. Or Justin Gaethje, who inserted him against anybody is fun. Getting revenge against Khabib's student. I mean, it's a fantastic matchup. He seems like the coming king, the chosen one kind of. That said, this freaking fight is fantastic. Like maybe the reign of Makhachev is coming but for the time being, let's really enjoy this one. Charles Oliveira has grown as a fighter as much as I remember any fighter in history. I mean, both the physical tools and the mental aspect, the toughness, like just a completely different fighter than he was 3, 4, 5 years ago. His striking has just, this was a guy that was striking with secondary, and he's truly become one of the best strikers in the game. And sure, some of that might be the worry of the grappling. Yeah, okay. But he's a Muay Thai striker. He does stand a little tall for my liking, but he's very aggressive. He's shown a chin where he can take a shot and land some of his own. Solid jab, good timing on his counters, really nice check left hook. He showed off just increasing like true power that not get talked about enough. We think about Michael Chandler, we think about Justin Gaethje, we think about Dustin Poirier, we think about the way they're to knock guys out, and he's knocking them out. He's knocking Michael Chandler out. He's knocking Dustin Poirier out. Step in elbows when he gets inside, slicing things. Hard leg kicks, kicks to the body. We saw teep kicks recently. He doesn't check leg kicks, which is a huge against Justin Gaethje. But everything else, I mean, the clinch game now, his willingness to he's never been a great, powerful wrestler, but he's an opportunistic wrestler. He'll find an opportunity and just kind of bull rush you over or catch a kick. He'll jump guard. He'll jump guard. He doesn't mind being on his back. He'll let you. He won't even fight off a takedown tap if you go for him. But he is the best submission artist in the history of the UFC. Straight submission. I'm not talking about a jiu-jitsu tournament of this. I mean, statistically, he can get a submission anywhere on his back in a scramble. He could sweep you if you're on top of him. Some of the meanest ground and pound we've seen recently, and just continued power. The one concern I have about him, he hasn't gone 25 minutes. We've never seen him in a title fight where he's had to go to war, where it's 20 minutes in and he has to dig deep. When the crowd's, that there's a big pop when the fight starts, but there's also an even bigger pop when the fifth round's about to start. Both guys are tired. They have to dig down deep. Whatever the coaches say at that point, it doesn't matter anymore. It's that battle in themselves. We haven't seen him have that. We haven't had us go to that. Now, Gaethje, obviously, we think of Gaethje, we think of brawler, but that's not the case. We talk about guys changing. That's not the case with Gaethje anymore. Yeah, of course you can have an all-time brawl like Michael Chandler. That was let's throw everything out. Let's give the fans what we want. But he's still way more technical than he gets credit for. I mean, Trevor Whitman really cleaned up his game. He's so good at getting in the pocket, unloading power shots. His overhand right is the thing of beauty. I mean, go back to the James Vick fight where he knocked him dead. He couldn't mess his left hook against Tony Ferguson. The leg kicks, probably the best leg kicks in the game. I mean, he went back and forth in a leg kick battle with Edson Barboza, and Barboza was one that crumbled. Great dirty box, and he gets in there. He has that Randy Couture style where he wants to grab you by the head and move you, hit you, move you, hit you. Did that to Donald Cerrone. And he's getting more technically each fight. The thing that really jumped out to me was the Tony Ferguson fight where Whitman was giving him adjustments and he was making those adjustments, which we wouldn't have saw in the past. We talked about Michael Chandler having the legs underneath him to generate power. That's something that Gaethje does very well too. He makes a mistake of backing straight up, which I don't like. He still drops his hands a little bit, and he's still as much as the technical he has, he still has that dog in front. He gets hit, he wants to answer. He has that Robert Whitaker, you hit me hard, I want to hit you harder back. We can get you caught. And he's taking ungodly amount of damage. I have to address it because it always gets brought up when people talk about. I think I've saw people writing on the internet Charles Oliveira's submission threat, and then Tomino says, "Well, he can't take Gaethje down. Gaethje was an All-American wrestler." It's yeah, he won 7th once, which is a great accomplishment, but he also had, you get in the right bracket, you get the nice little run, you finish 7th. Gaethje's wrestling, I've said this before, is equivalent to me getting perfect 10s in 3rd grade. It's just not there anymore. It doesn't matter. His wrestling is grossly overrated. He never uses it, and Charles Oliveira has taken down really good wrestlers like Justin Gaethje before. So, as far as the prediction goes, Oliveira just seems so special right now. There's just something about him right now. He's fighting with this insane confidence. Gaethje, though, has improved this technical sense in him so well, and he also has this dog in him, that bite down, which we haven't seen Oliveira get past that before. Or that was, I shouldn't say we haven't seen him get past that, but that was like the thing he didn't have. He had all the ability of the world, but he didn't have that. Like we were talking about Macy Chiasson. Macy Chiasson has the physical tools, but does she have that inner toughness? And that was what we used to question about Charles. I mean, I go back to like the Max Holloway fight. We started questioning him about that. I think the key to victory for Gaethje is really to kick out the legs. I think he showed against Ferguson that he can be technical for 25 minutes, which is a huge plus. I'm still taking Oliveira, though. Oliveira, I'm going back to that dog thing in him. Dustin Poirier had that dog, and Charles Oliveira passed that test. Michael Chandler has that dog, and Charles Oliveira passed that test. That question in Charles Oliveira, when things get tough, when you get rocked, when you're getting tired, it's not. He turns it up now. It's an advantage to him. Like those mental mistakes, he's not only has he got past them, he's made it his strength. Now, he's going to have to. I think he should try to close the distance. I think he should try to crowd the kicker. I think he should try to avoid, which is funny because he's the long rangy guy. He's got the long legs. I think he needs to come in. And a lot of people would say circle away, time a takedown, this, that. You're going to have to play with fire with Justin Gaethje. You're going to get tagged with big shots. It's going to happen, and you're just going to hope your chin holds up. As crazy as this sounds, I think Gaethje needs to fight technical, and I think Oliveira needs to make this a war. I think Oliveira needs to get in Gaethje's face, turn the heat up, have the brawler come on Gaethje, hope he gets tired, hope you land some big shots, because when Gaethje starts brawling, his defensive skills go out the window. You can start landing more power shots. He can get hurt. Maybe he shoots for a takedown. Maybe you have an opportunity for a takedown, and that's when you find a submission and a scramble. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to be a war right from the get-go, and I think in the second round, Charles Oliveira is going to catch a submission on Justin Gaethje. I think Gaethje's such a badass. I don't think he taps out. I think Gaethje gets caught like a darce and goes to sleep. So give me Charles Oliveira.
Would not be the first time, as Khabib Nurmagomedov choked him all the way out.
I think I have to again. Give me Charles Oliveira by second round submission.
I mean, I love the entire breakdown there, like the technical parts as well as the more intangible things. I have been guilty of picking against Charles Oliveira incorrectly several times. Like I think the last 3 times in a row I picked wrong. And each time I have said going into it that I know that Charles Oliveira is no longer the guy who basically tapped to a phantom injury against Max Holloway 7 or 8 years ago. The same guy that just kind of wilted when Paul Felder was on top of him, ground and pounding him. The guy
that's another good example of the Paul Felder fight. Yeah.
Yeah. The guy that blundered into submission losses against much inferior grapplers like, Ricardo Lamas. He's just not that guy anymore. He doesn't make dumb mistakes. He doesn't quit when things go wrong. I said it each time. I still picked against him, and I turned out wrong. I finally learned my lesson. Justin Gaethje is about as well equipped to beat Charles Oliveira as anybody in the division right now. Obviously, I'll be interested if Oliveira wins to see what it looks like when he takes on an Islam Makhachev. But, from what we know of their skill set, Justin Gaethje would seem to have it all there. And even so, I'm with you. I think Gaethje will have his moments in the first 2 rounds, and Oliveira will come back composed but resolute. And even if the momentum is going against him, even if he's physically hurt, even if he loses a round, he'll be right there in Gaethje's face. And Gaethje will be the one to blink first. Not necessarily saying Gaethje's going to break or quit, but he'll be the one to lose his composure and make a mistake first. And Oliveira has
Right.
always been an opportunist. And yeah, I'm going to go with Oliveira by submission in the third round. And I could even see it like starting with something like Oliveira, like shooting a surprise takedown when Gaethje is expecting him to charge in and clinch, or expecting a punch. Like Oliveira just drops and runs into the ground. And then the difference becomes evident as, yeah, Oliveira, he's the most prolific submission artist in UFC history, but he is also the greatest submission artist in UFC history. He's not some, you know, like baseball player that got 3,000 hits just because he stuck around for 25 years. You know, he has
Derek Jeter. Yep. Sorry, the Red Sox fan in me had to say.
You know what? Hey, you know, no more was always better when they were both playing and they were both healthy.
In their prime, yes, absolutely. I'll go to my grave saying that one.
Yeah, Nomar was the best of them, and I mean, like, and Alex Rodriguez might have been the second best of those kind of three when they were all doing their thing at the same time.
A-Rod might have been number one. We snuck in an old 1998 debate in there.
But no, like he's not a Derek Jeter type. Like he has, you know.
We're gonna get so much hate for this, by the way.
No, his submission attack, it's opportunistic. It's varied. He has so many different things he can do. He is just airtight on like the simple bread and butter guillotines, or he can go for the exotic stuff, like when he was just really, really working Ferguson over on the ground in their fight. He's got it all, and I expect he's going to find something on Gaethje here. And honestly, I hope you're right, and I hope it is a choke, and Gaethje just goes to sleep.
Yeah,
because if Oliveira starts cranking up a Kimura or like an armbar or something, like this is gonna be an uncomfortable recap we're doing.
Yeah,
but give me
trying to roll through it, and
give me Oliveira by third round submission. It'll be a great fight while it lasts, and we'll have plenty to talk about afterwards.
You know what I also think I could see? I could see this happen. I could see Gaethje dropping Oliveira and hurting him and going in for the kill and get an armbar or something like that when he's going in for ground and pound, or Oliveira rolling to a knee bar or heel hook or something, like a desperation, and still get it done.
Absolutely.
I'm so pumped for this fight now.
I'm extremely pumped for it. I mean, we've talked about the fights in this card that are less interesting than others, but there are no fights in this card that are just complete garbage. Like,
oh no,
you know, like even like the two kind of old timer fights on the main card.
The old timer fights, I'm not too excited about. But the card is like talked about. Dumb question. I'm assuming you know the answer. UFC's root for Gaethje, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, they would be better for the UFC if Gaethje won, right?
Yeah, but either one is not bad because
no, I agree.
Because Oliveira, he's eventually just going to take the path to stardom that Anderson Silva did. You know, this
same exact thing. Yeah,
kind of guy that he never spoke English that well, so you just had to keep winning, and you became a hardcore fan favorite. And then when you got the right foil, you became a superstar. Period. Like just at some point, some guy's going to come along and just say a lot of really dumb and controversial shit at the guy, and it'll be game on. Yeah,
just the best is just Gaethje is the hardcore fans. Everybody loves Gaethje.
Yeah, but Gaethje's like, he's too nice. He's not just gonna like start saying a bunch of weird racist shit at him. Like it'll be a dark horse. It'll be like Gregor Gillespie all of a sudden just like picks up the Colby playbook and like starts going with it. Charles Oliveira, you absolutely suck. Like something like that. Oh, I mean, we'll be speculating. That's it. That's the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC 274, Oliveira versus Gaethje. 14 fights up, 14 fights down. I've been your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com. With me once again, and as always, or at least as usual, has been Keith Schillen, executive producer of the Sherdog Radio Network. If this is your first time listening, thank you for joining us. Make sure to leave a comment. Keith and I are both very good about kind of coming back at your takes, your questions, your answers. But even more importantly, join us on the recap. After the main event, typically about 10, 15 minutes after, we just, give enough time for the dust to settle and switch browser tabs. We are live on the Sherdog YouTube channel. You can also find a link just from the Sherdog front page where we will break down everything that just happened. What was good? What was bad? What's controversial, if anything? And let's face it, there's always something. What's next for the winners? Yeah, what's next for the winners as well as the losers? The live chat on the YouTube page is wide open there. We are taking your questions, your comments, your hot takes. If we were dead wrong about any of these picks, we are here for your abuse. Let us have it. But we have a fun, interactive bunch of friends there, and we would love to see you join them. Meanwhile, thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your week, and certainly enjoy the fights.